Welcome, everybody, to our May 2nd City Commission work session. We'll call this meeting to order. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We have a whole ton of presentations today, but first I wanted to just announce and say happy birthday to Commissioner Franey.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
So we will be celebrating after the meeting. If anybody wants to stick around, don't all run for the door at once.
There's champagne, beer.
Yeah. No, that's when it's my birthday.
Got it.
Okay, so we'll move on to our happy birthday.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our presentations, and our first presentation is the recognition of International Economic Development Week, and I will turn that over to Commissioner Franey.
Okay, well, I will read the proclamation, and then, as instructed by our Economic Development Director, we're going to have a presentation.
Yeah.
So, International Economic Development Week, May 8th through the 12th, 2023, economic development touches all things. Whereas economic development is a process that is strengthened by the critical partnerships between economic development professionals and local government leadership to promote a shared vision for developing vibrant communities. And whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities by helping to create, retain, and expand jobs that sustain individuals and families, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers, in partnership with industries, educators, and other key allies, cultivate and nurture entrepreneurship that helps to secure the next generation of new businesses, foster an effective business climate, and meet the increasingly critical need for a skilled and competitive workforce. And whereas economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, and federal governments, and public-private partnerships, such as the Dunedin Chamber of Commerce, Dunedin Downtown Merchants Association, Visit Dunedin, and a variety of other businesses, associations, and institutions. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, support small businesses and entrepreneurs, and improve the quality of life in their regions. Now, therefore, I, Maureen Mo Franey, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Mayor of the City of Dunedin, Florida, and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 8th through the 12th, 2023 as International Economic Development Week, and urge all citizens to recognize the efforts of the Economic and Housing Development CRA Department, who are outstanding, by the way, and all our economic development partners, and reaffirm the importance of business development. And Bob, if you want to come forward, or do you want to do the presentation first?
Either way.
We should get this first, probably.
Whatever instructions.
Thanks for all you do, and your team.
Thank you so much. All right.
And we are blessed with a great economic development team.
We do have a great team. Bob Ironsmith, Economic Development and Housing, and with team creating a sense of place for Dunedin. And we do have a great team, a lot of great organizations, everybody coming together. Obviously, the City Commission, the Chamber, the merchants, a lot of people that are active in the town. And we've had a great success story. You know, downtown Dunedin, as well as the rest of the city, is extremely strong. If you want to sell a place in Dunedin, it's going to go quick. And we're all very blessed with that. And I'm fortunate to have a great team. I've had a good team in place for quite some time. And I think the important thing that I want to get across is some people think economic development is just increasing tax base, a return on investment, and things of that nature. It's really creating a sense of place. And that's what we're doing today. Skinner Boulevard, complete streets, a landscape meeting coming up on Patricia. We're going to redo the streetscape and sidewalk in front of the Casatina Main Street area. So all along the lines, that's why I said creating a sense of place. And that's one of the main things that we're doing. We got a nice little video. Sue and Communications put together this video that kind of highlights a little bit of what we do in economic development. So at this point in time, I'd like to go ahead and show it, and I'll certainly field any questions that you have. And I will say, too, that in addition to creating a sense of place, obviously we're working on some of the big items, too. Coca-Cola, as you all have expressed to me and the city manager, Jennifer, Coca-Cola, reuse, redevelopment, that's a big deal. So we stay on point with that, too. So at this point in time, let me go ahead and hit the video, and then I can answer any questions you might have. In the city of Dunedin, economic development touches all things. We create a very fertile business and cultural environment that encourages and promotes private investment, business recruitment, business retention, as well as promoting tourism and things that improve the quality of life in the city of Dunedin for those that live, work, and play here.
Economic development improves the fabric of the community of Dunedin with complete streets, creating a safe environment for bicycles, pedestrians, and vehicles.
Economic development provides the resources for Dunedin's cultural and artistic aesthetics, which creates a sense of place that is uniquely Dunedin.
Economic development provides an environment for entrepreneurs to thrive.
That is the Dunedin vibe. It's the spirit of community working together.
Economic development touches all things, but most importantly, it's the economic engine that generates revenue to provide for world-class amenities and services for those that live, work, and play in the city of Dunedin, Florida. Thanks to Sue and her team putting that together. It's a great video. We certainly use it, and I think it really kind of sums up, all the things that we get involved with. And, not only this, we're also, as you all know, working toward affordable housing. We keep trying to get that one in play too. And I'll tell you, that's one of the hardest things that I've worked on. And hopefully, here in a year, I can say, yes, we got it done. So we're also doing that too. I'd be happy to field any questions that you might have. If anybody's got something. Commissioner?
I think we just want to honor them.
Yeah, just one comment that I
Sure.
just wanted to make.
Uh-oh.
Number one thing I told the mayor today was, can I please, for my birthday, read the Economic Development Proclamation? You guys do an awesome job.
Oh,
really.
thank
Great
you.
video.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
All righty, thank you.
Very good. All right, our next proclamation, and we have 5 of them today, which is so unusual. Our next proclamation is our Public Service Recognition Week. And who couldn't be more appropriate than Commissioner Gao?
Thank you, Mayor. Teresa, would you come up, please? Very good. And while this is Public Service Recognition Week, May 7th through the 13th, we do need to acknowledge that every day is Recognition Week. And the work that is done by public service is just amazing. And I actually consider the commission part of that. So Public Service Recognition Week, May 7th through the 13th, 2023. Whereas Public Service Recognition Week is a time to honor the dedicated federal, state, tribal, and local government employees who embody the spirit of service and endless possibilities that define America. And whereas every day millions of public workers at all levels of government do extraordinary things to make our lives better and our country stronger. And whereas public servants make crucial contributions in every community across the country by providing a wide range of essential services that keep us safe and propel us forward. And whereas public servants reflect the full diversity of the nation and deliver the promise of a government by and for the people. And whereas America's dedicated public servants are the lifeblood of our democracy, and it is because of their remarkable resilience and dedication that we continue to transform our communities for the better. And whereas Public Service Recognition Week recognizes the indispensable contributions of our nation's public servants and enables us to pay tribute to all of our public workers who perform critical roles across our country. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Gao, by the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Mayor of the City of Dunedin, and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby declare May 7th through the 13th, 2023, as Public Service Recognition Week, and call upon everyone to recognize the dedication of our public servants, especially City of Dunedin employees, and observe this week through appropriate programs and activities.
Mayor, a couple words, if I may.
Please.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission. Teresa Smalling, Director of HR and Risk Management for the city. Just want to take a moment because, as Commissioner Gao said public service employees are the unspoken heroes of our nation. From solid waste to utilities, from community development to city manager's office, our employees continually demonstrate on a daily basis that they are committed to the city's epic goals and to making Dunedin residents appreciate, hopefully, everything that's done for them. The benefits are shown on a daily basis through having clean water, having sewers that work, a dedicated fire service, and solid waste, clean streets. And so for this coming week, we wanted to show small tokens of appreciation. The HR team working with other communications departments and others will be hosting different activities throughout the week. One of the things that we hope that our citizens will do is just whenever they see a city employee out there, just thank them for everything that they do for the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Teresa. We're so proud of all our, I mean, almost everybody in this room is a public servant. And it is truly a labor of love and passion. You know what they say about the military, it's not just a job. And it isn't just a job, because you do feel like you're giving something much bigger. And I mean, just not to steal your thunder over there, Jeff, but just this morning I was shocked. We had another tree branch fall from my beautiful tree that's got to get cut down at some point or another. You all might remember I had one fall through my roof, and it was like social media chaos over it. Well, another one from the same tree fell, but it just fell the other way, and we had to have it chopped up, and it was out for our solid waste guys to pick up. And we fully expect, and this was a big branch, we fully expected the claw truck to come at some point this week. These guys are normal garbage guys, stood out there and picked all that stuff up by hand. I was shocked. I was waiting for that big claw truck to come. And of course I was in my pajamas, so I couldn't run out and say thank you, but thank you guys. I mean, Tom and I were just like, oh my God. I mean, they were picking up huge pieces of wood and throwing them in there just to get it moved on, you know? And to me, that was like a special effort that maybe you wouldn't see from another city. So we do have great employees.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, our next proclamation is Historic Preservation Month. And I have turned that over to Commissioner Walker because he has a home that has gone through the process.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Walker, I wanted to let you know you were here. Former Vice Mayor Kynes was in and out of here this morning to let us know she was thinking about us, but had another meeting to go to. She took the time to come tell us that. That's commitment. So Rob, I will turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely my privilege and honor to read this proclamation. Historic preservation is such an important part of our fabric here in Dunedin, and it's so important to recognize our past while we plan for the future. So I greatly appreciate what you all do. Historic Preservation Month. Whereas historic preservation helps to maintain the character and unique identity of the communities, and whereas historic preservation is essential to the economic, social, and cultural well-being of cities, and whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for promoting sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, promoting resident and visitor engagement, and maintaining community character, and whereas the City of Dunedin recognizes the importance of preserving its rich history and cultural heritage. And whereas in October 2018, the City Commission adopted Chapter 111 of the Land Development Code, which encompasses the preservation, protection, perpetuation, and use of historic landmarks in the city. And whereas the City Commission established the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee to safeguard the heritage of Dunedin by preserving the resources of the community, which reflect the elements of historical significance. And whereas the HPAC is tasked to identify, designate, and make recommendations on regulating historic landmarks to preserve their historical significance, and whereas the HPAC maintains the city's inventory of historic structures and the city's local historic landmark designation program, and whereas the National Trust for Historic Preservation established the month of May as Historic Preservation Month in 1973 as a way to promote historic places to instill the national community pride, advocate heritage, tourism, and show the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. And whereas the City of Dunedin is committed to promoting the importance of preserving our city's historic resources for future generations. Now, therefore, I, Robert James Walker, by virtue of the authority invested in me by the Mayor of the City of Dunedin, Florida, and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby claim May as Historic Preservation Month in Dunedin and call upon our citizens to join community neighbors and citizens across the United States in recognizing and in participating in their special observance. I encourage all residents to celebrate and promote the importance of preserving our city's rich history and cultural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, City Commission, Mayor, City Manager, Francis Leong Sharp, Planner 2 for the city. As you may have been familiar, a couple weeks ago, the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee had reported their annual report related to their continuance of the committee. And we do have here this morning Sharice Ponraj, Chair of our Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, who would like to say a few words.
Okay, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission. It's great to be with you guys again here. I have to say, 2 weeks ago is when we initially talked about this, and I'm so happy that we were able to get it through and that we can acknowledge May as the first promotion of this historic preservation that we've ever had here in Dunedin. So on behalf of the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, I think we're really enthusiastic to see how the awareness and engagement takes off from here forward. And I just want to thank you for your support. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all the work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Water Safety Month. And again, who would be more appropriate than Vice Mayor Tonga for Water Safety Month?
Is that because it all starts with water? Or?
Yes. Yes.
All sorts
You're
of good pool.
You're a water guy.
Well, we're going to be talking about natural water. We're going to be talking
All
about
sorts with a good pool.
provided water.
That's
So we've
right.
got Nan in the audience as well. But thank you very much for being here today. And this is Water Safety Month for 2023. Whereas the City of Dunedin is committed to ensuring the safety of all residents and visitors to our great city, and whereas residents and tourists alike enjoy our city's natural water resources and man-made recreational water facilities, and whereas swimming and aquatic-related activities play a vital role in good physical and mental health and enhance the quality of life for all residents and visitors. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that annually there are an estimated 4,000 fatal unintentional drownings, including boating-related drowning, averaging 11 drowning deaths per day, and 8,000 non-fatal drownings, averaging 22 non-fatal drownings per day. And whereas more children ages 1 through 4 die from drowning than any other cause of death except for birth defects. For children ages 1 through 14, drowning is the second leading cause of unintentional injury death after motor vehicle crashes. And whereas comprehensive water safety education is essential for everyone, including children, parents, and caregivers, to be aware of water safety rules and programs to help prevent drownings and recreational water-related injuries. And whereas basic water safety tips include always having adult supervision of children, providing children swimming lessons at a young age, installing barriers when a child or vulnerable adult has uninterrupted access to a body of water, and everyone, especially caregivers, should learn CPR and have safety equipment such as emergency flotation devices. And whereas Water Safety Month in Dunedin is an opportunity to promote water safety as well as provide education in our coastal community regarding prevention of recreational water-related injuries, illnesses, and deaths. Now therefore I, John Torringa, by virtue of the authority invested in the Mayor of the City of Dunedin, Florida, and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Water Safety Month in Dunedin. During this month, I encourage all residents to take the pledge to be safe swimmers and make water safety a priority.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission. My name is Alicia Castricone. I'm the Program Coordinator at the Highlander Pool. And today I'm going to go over a presentation with you about water safety. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, she's doing that. Okay. So before we get started, really quick, I want to introduce Miss Stephanie Kinsinger. She is the head lifeguard at the Highlander Pool. She is more than just a head lifeguard. She is my assistant, confidant, person I cry to from time to time. So she assists me in being able to do all the things that we do. So she's more than just the clicker. But today she's going to click for me. So to start us off with our education and outreach, one of the biggest things that we do is swim lessons. Teaching our kids how to be safe in and around the water is key to preventing drownings, injuries, and things of that nature. So we have the Kiwanis Foundation Free Swim Lesson Program that originally started as the Every Child a Swimmer program in 2009. And since then, we have helped more than 1,200 children learn to be safe in and around the water. And what that means is that we're teaching them how to jump in, how to turn around and get to the side and climb out, how to float. Those are important pieces. In addition, we also make sure that families have information that goes home with them so that they can learn how to be safe at their homes and at the beaches and things of that nature. This year, we just started, actually, the program. Yesterday was the first day, and we have 38 children registered, so we're nearing that 1,300. We're very excited about that. Our Learn to Swim through Red Cross is our traditional group swim lesson program, and that goes on throughout the summer. We teach from 6 months all the way through adult, and those will be continuous until the end of the season. We have several sessions available throughout the summer, and we can get signed up for as little as $40 to $60 depending on their residency for 6 30-minute swim lessons. Our adaptive swim lesson program is very important, especially amongst our intellectual disability students, because, as you know, autism, they become very attracted to water. And I don't know if you've heard, but there have been some instances of drowning, especially with children who have been diagnosed as autistic. Our swim lesson summer camp program, we call it Learn and Play Pre-K. Try saying that 5 times fast. This particular summer camp includes the swim lesson in it. So these children are going to be going into kindergarten, and they start with us learning how to be safe in and around the water. We include all the rules and knowing, hey, don't get in the water unless there's someone, an adult, that can watch you. And then, of course, they learn to swim
by jumping in, swimming to the side, climbing out. And then ultimately, they will pass our swim test, which is jumping in, swimming 25 yards, and being able to jump off the diving board. So that's like their graduation, and they get very excited about being able to pass our swim test. So that one is a very popular group. It does fill up every year, all summer long. Now this next one, I am super proud of this year. It's going to be our first year teaching our VPK 4-year-olds at San Jose Elementary School. That's been in the planning stages for a couple of years now, and the school board has been gracious to allow us to do that. The principal, Miss Lisa Brown, was excited when I brought it to her attention last year, and we have been working all year long to create this program. So we have 29 kids enrolled, and that will start on May the 10th. So we're very excited about that. So the next part of our outreach is not just us teaching our kids, but teaching others how to teach. So again, we worked with the Pinellas County School Board, and we were able to teach a WSI or water safety instructor class at the Nina Harris Exceptional School. Specifically, this school works with children of both physical and intellectual disabilities, where they have a pool on site, and they utilize it for having the children get in, participate with an instructor, learn some skills, whether it be floating or just being in the water, and movement is also good for them. So they reached out to us and said, hey, Alicia, we need some swim teachers. And I said, absolutely. So myself and actually Stephanie went out there, and we taught 4 of them how to teach swim lessons. We really focused on the adaptive nature, since that's the area they're going to be working in the most. But very successful. They were a great group. So we hope to be able to continue to do that for our schools that have pools within them, especially the exceptional schools. All right. Okay, so back when we were dealing with COVID and all the restrictions that we had, we did a water safety drive-through that was super successful. It did take a lot of hands and a lot of organization on our part to be able to make that happen. So we said, okay, how can we do the same thing and do it all over? And we created last year the water safety pop-up. What the pop-up does for us is that we're able to literally pop up in all parts of Dunedin and give away life jackets and water safety information, including the Water Watcher badge, which we will talk about soon. So families come out to where we are. We post on social media. It's on our website, and the word really does get out, because we have given away probably about 50 life jackets just this month. So we're really excited. Our next one, that was in April, we did about 50. So we have 2 more. May 7th, which is going to be at the Kiwanis Spray Ground from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then again at May 20th on the Causeway, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you can see all the goodies we give away. And we really do, we fit the life jackets for the kids to make sure that they fit properly. So let's talk about the life jackets. They'll come up. There they are. All right, so this is the list of all of the different life jackets from type 1 to type 5. Traditionally, we work with type 2 and type 3. Type 2 is going to be the one that's on your boat, okay, that's required by the Coast Guard. The type 3 is the one that we tend to fit the children for. It gives them a little bit more movement. It has the 3 straps, and then for the younger guys, the life jackets that's fitted for them, there is a strap that also goes between the legs and connects as well, and that just keeps our little ones from slipping out, because as you know, our infants and our toddlers, they slip through anything, so they're like little Houdinis. So, but anyway, those are the types of life jackets that we have, and again, we work specifically with type 2s and type 3s. So the Water Watcher Badge, this is very important. This initiative started a few years back, and I said to my leadership, we need to have our own, okay? So we designed this one. This one is specific to us, the city of Dunedin, and it just talks about the importance of when you are at a pool or a body of water, the beach, etc., that somebody is watching that kid or that child or the children that are playing in the water. More often than not, the accidents happen with, well, I thought you were watching them, or I thought you were watching them, and then ultimately nobody was watching them. So if you have a gathering, you have a backyard pool, and kids are in the water, the person watching the children is going to wear this, okay? They cannot be on their cell phones, no scrolling, none of that. And they can't be distracted, meaning having adult conversations. And I know this one's a tough one, but at least wait to have the adult beverage till after your shift is done. So it's very important. And then on the back, you can see it talks about making sure you know where your emergency equipment is to be able to rescue a child should they need it. Keep constant watch of all children. Scan the bottom of the pool, making sure that, you know what, you see the kids swimming on top. Sorry. You see the kids swimming on top, making sure that you're seeing anything that goes to the bottom as well. Again, avoiding the poolside chats, talking on the phone, keeping the phone still available for the emergency because, you know, even the best laid plan doesn't always work out, and sometimes you do have an emergency. So having a phone available to call 911 and get them there as soon as possible is key to their survival. And then knowing CPR, it is so important to know CPR because, again, should something like this happen, you can at least try to keep the child or adult in this case, in any case, alive until EMS can arrive and help, okay? We do offer CPR classes at the Highlander Pool as well, so if anyone is interested, they can reach out to us and we can make sure that, you know, we can help them with that. And I want to cover layers of protection because that's really key to this whole Water Watcher situation. The layers of protection, so for those who are watching or those that are here today, if you have a home pool, it is so important that you have a fence around the pool with a pool top lock so that little ones don't get through, okay? And the top lock has to be tall enough to where they can't reach it. And then, of course, make sure there's no chairs or step stools in the place so that they can't climb up and pull the top lock because that is also an issue. Make sure that you have door alarms. Door alarms are so cheap. They're at Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, any type of hardware store. They can be from $7 to $10. And when you think about it in the long term, would you rather pay for that emergency room visit, the ICU stay, and of course the worst, you know, funeral expenses, or $5 to $10 for a pool alarm? And what that alarm is going to do is it's going to alert you when your slider opens when you don't want it to. So if a kid's trying to get through and let's say we forgot to lock it, it's going to beep when the two pieces disconnect. So that's super important to have. And then make sure there's no toys in the pool, okay? Our littles love enticing things in the pool. I mean, water is enticing in itself, but if you put a toy in there, that makes it like times 10. So making sure that everything is put away and clear, the locks are in place, the alarms are in place. Those are going to be your layers of protection that are going to keep those kids from getting into a place they don't need to be. So having a first aid kit is also important. I mentioned knowing CPR, having the CPR mask available is key as well. If you are also looking for CPR classes, either reach out to us or you can also reach out to Red Cross as well. We talked about the Water Watcher badge, that is important, but also educating your family, educating other people that could be watching your children. So at times, other family members watch your children, whether it be grandparents, aunts, or uncles. It's important that you educate them on water safety, clarify what those layers of protection are, and make sure they have them at their pools. Make sure they have a well-stocked first aid kit and understand what that Water Watcher badge does for us. And then, of course, as I spoke earlier, getting the swim lessons, teaching those children how to be safe in and around the water is just key. So Next slide, please. All right, so to help educate our youngsters, we have our books, okay? So Josh the Otter is a really good book that teaches us about floating and floating with a buddy. We have these cool little things. The kids love them. They try to go home with them, but I let them know I got to use them for the next class. Our next book is Stewie the Duck. Stewie the Duck comes from a foundation. Unfortunately, little Stewie was a child, and he did pass away in 1989, but the family really decided, hey, we need to get the education out. Let's do everything that we can so that it doesn't happen to the next person. So it says about Stewie, while on vacation with his family in 1989, 21-month-old Stewie ventured into the pool unnoticed. Within minutes, a housewide search ensued. Soon after, a yellow T-shirt was spotted floated in the pool. Stewie was immediately retrieved from the pool and CPR was performed, but it was too late. So this book is just a reminder to, educate our children, and it has some really cool illustrations, and there's a song involved. The kids love singing the songs. So that's another one. And then Swim Safer Little Seals is a really good one. It talks about all the different rules, being safe in and around the water, boating, skiing, no diving, following the rules. So this one's a really good one as well. And then we do, go ahead to the next slide, thank you. Our water safety publication. So I have to give a big thank you to our communications team, Sue Burness and her crew. They do a great job at getting the social media out there. Without them, we could not get the word out as much as we do. I also do the Beacon. The TBN Weekly picks up some of the stuff that we put out there, and they call us and say, hey, we got your stuff. Is there, they'll ask us questions and see if there's anything else to add. And I also want to thank Nicole Allen as well, because she's a part of that crew that gets the word out and works with Sue in getting that social media out as well. So, and what this tells us, guys, at the end of the day, is that water safety is so important. Our pool is so important to us that we have to remember that it's a necessity and not a luxury. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your hard work.
I'd like to make a concluding comment to your presentation, and thank you for the water safety, because that's really important to me. I got stories that go way back. But I wanted to point out that I had actually asked the city manager to wear a life preserver here today. Is that correct? That's correct.
I could have provided it.
But then we realized you were going to have a full presentation, so we didn't need to do that. But
I could have gone on for hours. I try to make it as brief as possible. But this is my passion, and I will continue to push water safety in any conversation that I have. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
And we thank you for the detail.
Thank you. Okay, and our last proclamation, last but not least, is it's Municipal Clerks Week. Come on up. Rebecca, you join your colleagues? So, for any of you watching, Rebecca did not want to put this on our agenda. Because anybody that knows Rebecca, she doesn't like to get attention. And most municipal clerks are the same way. They are very detail-oriented and they stay in their corner. But we could not have that because you all perform such a great service to our community, and we wanted to honor you for that. So, I will read the proclamation. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, not literally, whereas the office of clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas clerks have pledged to be ever mindful
of neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishment of the office of our municipal clerk. So now, therefore, I, Julie Ward Bajolski, by the virtue of authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Dunedin, and on behalf of our entire city commission, do hereby proclaim the week of April 30th to May 6th as Municipal Clerks Week. And I further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Rebecca Schlichter, and her team for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the community they represent. Thank you, ladies. So why don't you introduce your team and give us a few words.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Jennifer and Jennifer. I just wanted to introduce, and I did invite them all to come because, as you all know, they work hard and they deserve so much more than this. But I just wanted to introduce Michelle. Michelle's been with us just under a year, about 9 months, I guess, 10 months, as the Deputy City Clerk. Janice, Records Manager, has been with the city for 36 years. And
can never leave. And
what is it, like a month or something?
I say that on a daily basis.
2 months. She's retiring in 2 months.
No, she can't leave.
Yeah.
And then Catherine, which most of you have met, is our senior administrative assistant. And so, but again, I just wanted them to come because I do, work so hard for all the citizens here in Dunedin and just they're the little, I'm like sitting. And
they're the duck legs.
They're the duck legs. and so I just appreciate each of them more than they know. And so I just want
Well, we appreciate you, and let me just say that what I really liked about the proclamation was that it talked about the impartiality and the equal service, because I mean, as any department in our city will tell you, any employee, you know a lot of things and you hear a lot of things, but you ladies are probably the most ethical people I've ever met in my entire life. And you have to deal with our elections, so you get competing interests in and out of your office all the time. You have to be completely impartial when you treat them. And our residents, you understand it doesn't matter what you want a document for. It just matters they want it and you're going to get it for them. They don't even have to give you their name. And you treat that very respectfully, and I think it's important for our community to understand just how respectful and ethical that you all are, and you deserve some recognition for that. So thank you. And Mo will be picketing outside of your office, Janice.
Definitely. A blockade.
Yeah, we know.
Yes, I know where
yeah.
you're from, so.
And I know where you hang out, too. Just saying.
Huge loss.
I know. Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. 45 minutes of presentations.
Good ones, though.
They were all good. All right, so we will move on to citizen.
No life jacket on the city manager. I'm very disappointed about that.
Hey, what the heck? You could have brought one.
That would have made it.
You have several.
I only have about 25.
Yeah.
You could have made my birthday, but you just didn't,
Yeah, well, Jennifer's like me. I don't do things like that. Okay, now it's time for citizen input on any item that is not already on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, you will definitely get a chance to speak to it. So anybody wish to come forward and speak to any item that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from April 4th and April 6th, and board and committee appointments for Hammock Advisory and the Public Relations Advisory.
as well as the purchase of flight? Okay. It doesn't look like flight, I'm telling you. The purchase of flight pumps for the wastewater division treatment plant. I am very sure that that's important. I want to make sure that my flight pump works.
Well, and they mix liquor, I was trying to.
Oh, stop it.
They do, they mix liquor. I
Yeah.
don't know what kind of liquor, but,
So, can I have a motion? Are there any items to be pulled? Please don't tell me you want to pull the flight thing, because I think I might shoot myself. All right, can I have a motion?
Trying to
Stop.
intimidate us.
Stop. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Walker, and was that,
Birthday girl.
okay, Commissioner Franny. All right, is there anybody from the citizens here that would like to speak to any of these consent agenda items? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, and then we have the agenda for the May 16th work session. Anything we need to know about or any changes recommended?
None from staff, Mayor.
Okay. We have the budget software. We'll have an addendum to the golf course license agreement. Is that a long thing, or is that more? It's just what the next steps are, I guess, right?
Yeah,
To get us through.
Yeah, and we'd like to bring you up to date on
Yeah.
all the conversations.
All the different things.
Right.
Okay. See, when you put your keys away, you have to turn your phone off. That's the trick.
Right.
I learned that a long time. Deborah's phone used to go off all the time. Okay, so if no changes, can I have a motion to approve the proposed agenda for May 16th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor and Commissioner Gao, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we're getting ready for a marina rate study. Anybody want to go take?
Yes.
Let's go take a break, because I know this is going to be pretty long. Okay, I can get another cup of coffee and. Welcome back, everybody. We will start now with our marina rate study follow-up. Jennifer, did you have any opening?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. And good morning again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. The City Commission saw the original report on the rate study at the end of January of this year, and you had several questions regarding that rate study and some of the information that was provided within the body of the rate study. And you also directed staff to go out to the community to get their input, not just the marina itself, but the wider community. And we did. We had 2 community meetings. We had one in the evening and one in the morning, and both of them were very well attended. There were lots of questions, comments, some statements that were made during the course of those meetings, and we have addressed some of that information towards the end of your PowerPoint here this morning. I think we're going to need to go back and do the abridged version of that original presentation, just to remind you, because January was a long time ago, and there have been a lot of items before the City Commission since then. So
I pulled my notes.
there you go. But I think it's important to kind of touch upon some of those, and then towards the end of the presentation, we'll have, I think, 3 or 4 discussion points or decision points. This is a City Commission workshop. You're in your Commission workshop mode, so just for those who are watching, you're not going to be making decisions today. You might be giving consensus direction, but today is not a day for specific decisions or votes on the marina rate study. You're going to be receiving information, and there's probably going to be some further discussion, and staff will take your direction where it's appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Welcome, ladies.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission. Nicole Delfino here to present the rate study follow-up. I'm here with Tristan Townsend from Raftellus, the consultant that we engaged for the study. Terry was initially scheduled to join us by Zoom, and he may join as he's able. He's tied up with another obligation. So we'll just jump right in. As far as what we're going to go through today, again, just recapping a little bit of the study, taking a look at the background and issues and kind of how we arrived here. The enterprise fund review, that was an item that was kind of talked about quite a bit in the community sessions. The financial plan, a recap, again, just looking at the recommendations on the rates. And then as far as a follow-up, the rate structure, liveaboard, commercial and transient fees, a benchmarking update, metering and construction discussion, and then the community listening session summary. As for the background and issues, I will pass it to Tristan.
All right, good morning. Thank you all. So just going to give a recap on what we spoke about back in January. So the kind of primary objectives of the study that we went into were to look at proposing fair and reasonable rates for the marina, that we're going to promote the fiscal sustainability of the fund, assuming the current operations. And we also look to benchmark operations and rates to other local marinas in the area to just aid in assessing policies and informing the study. So we had 3 different elements of the study, the first being the financial plan. We developed a multi-year forecast that was over 10 years to look at the annually recurring and periodic costs to the marina. The goal of this is to look at the revenue sufficiency of the marina fund to make sure that the marina is recovering adequate amount to cover the costs. So the next piece of that would be the cost of service. The goal of this is to look at the rate design, looking at how you are recovering those costs and from which customers you are doing that. And to do this piece, we allocated costs to various marina functions that we identified related to slip use, to liveaboard surcharge, the boat ramp and parking, and the restaurant. And then finally, the last element was the benchmarking. So we did a survey with other marinas in the region, and we identified charges for service, amenities, and other operational characteristics just to try and kind of get some more additional information for context to compare. So this process was data-driven. On the right-hand side, you can see a figure. This is kind of the approach that we take when we do our studies. We have our revenues, which you can see in kind of the green on the left-hand side of the scale, and the revenue requirements. And so the goal is to balance these two things. The things that make up the revenues are going to be the slip fees, the boat ramp and parking fees, the rent from the restaurant. And the revenue requirements are going to be our operating expenses, the capital and capital reserve, and any debt service. So again, this is a data-driven process. Staff was able to provide us with a lot of really great data, and so we appreciate them doing that for us. That data included historical billing statistics, financial data, fixed asset records, the current budget and financial plan that the city has created, the CIP, as well as interviews with staff and aiding in the survey that we did. And so the city right now already creates financial plans for the various funds. And so part of the reason that we were engaged was because the existing financial plan that the city had sort of developed looking at the Marina Fund had identified a fund deficiency in fiscal year 26. It may be hard to see in this graphic, and I apologize for that. But on the very last line, it's highlighted in yellow. Is going to show the cash balances for the Marina Fund. And in the very bottom right-hand corner, circled with a red circle, that's showing you where the fund is going negative in fiscal year 26. So the city is kind of already aware that the Marina Fund is expected to go into negative cash balances. So there is a need to address this and to, adjust the rates to recover the expenses for the fund. And this is primarily going to be due to capital needs for the marina. And this financial plan that was done, it did assume some slip fee increases as well. I believe that was at 4%. And so even with that increase that was assumed in this plan, it was still going to be going negative. So that's why we're kind of assessing this and looking to see how we can address revenue sufficiency for the system. And another piece of this as well is that in this financial plan, depreciation was listed out. It was listed out for $150,000 approximately every year, which is a fair thing to do. But one point I want to make is that depreciation is at original cost of the assets. We know that replacement costs for those assets is going to be higher. So having depreciation at 150 in here and kind of incorporating that into the cash flow, it may be understating the needs of the Marina Fund because there's going to be a need to have larger investment in those assets later on. Additionally, if there are any assets that are already fully depreciated, which there are, those costs aren't really going to be built into this financial plan as well. So that's kind of one of the pieces we wanted to make sure that we were accounting for. So over here, we kind of looked at the snapshot of the first year of our forecast period, which was fiscal year 23. You can kind of see our reference to our scale kind of up in the upper right hand, balancing those revenues and revenue requirements. And so what we had identified, and this is going to be prior to the recent 10% increase that you all adopted effective April 1st, the revenues shown on the left in green on the chart, about $593,000 a year, whereas the operating expenses, we had about $454,000 a year. That kind of extra piece that we identified was going to be for the PAYGO related to capital. So that's instead of that 150 kind of target, we looked at the amortized costs of the fixed assets and looking at that over kind of the duration of the CIP, and we identified about $356,000 in PAYGO where that would be needed kind of for the marina to be beginning to recover. And so the primary takeaway here is that when we look at all the costs for the marina, the revenues are approximately 37% below the funding requirements. And so we had recommended previously that the rates be adjusted to address this 37% deficiency. We had recommended that those rates be phased in over time. Doing so would help minimize rate shock to any customers, but still kind of enable you all to start building up the reserves and capital or the revenues that you would need to have that pay-go. It also allows the city to assess any market price elasticity. We don't have data per se on what kind of the historical elasticity as it pertains to marina slip rates would be. So this phase-in kind of enables you all to look at that as well. And just one other item that we want to make sure you're aware of is that this plan assumes some debt in the near term to finance some capital needs. Those are interfund loans, short term, but just want to make you all aware of that.
The next section we'll go over is the enterprise fund. And I wanted to highlight this area in particular because it was a big topic of discussion in the community meetings and kind of really understanding what an enterprise fund is and how this one operates at the marina.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So enterprise funds, they are operated in a manner that's similar to a private business enterprise in that the intent is to the cost of providing the goods and the services are going to be financed primarily through user charges. And kind of what this means is that the fund needs to be self-sustaining. So the Marina Fund is an enterprise fund. And so, in the last slide, we talked about having a fairly large shortfall in funding. So that's something that because the Marina Fund is an enterprise fund, it's really imperative that the way that costs are being recovered are going to make up for that deficiency.
So the other piece of that is really understanding the boundary of the enterprise fund, which we have a bird's eye view here and a highlighted section of really how the enterprise fund and the marina fund captures the marina basin itself, the harbor master building, the boat ramp, and only a portion of the parking lot, which is the reserved boat, boat or parking passes that are assigned. What it does not include are the day docks, anything out on the island, the boat club, the pram shed, or any other additional parts of Edgewater Park.
So one of the things, if I could just interject, that and it occurred to me yesterday when we were briefing, when I was briefing the City Commission, is that we use enterprise fund and marina fund interchangeably. They are the same thing. And I think that was really during the course of some of those community meetings what had really kind of confused people in terms of which fund are you talking about? It's the same fund. The marina fund is an enterprise fund. And so, anytime we refer to the enterprise fund, it is that particular marina fund. Thank you.
Thanks. And then moving on into the financial plan, again, just a recap of the recommendations of this plan.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll just kind of quickly run through the assumptions of our financial plan. So on the right-hand side is going to kind of list out all of the revenues that we had identified. The vast majority of the revenues are coming from the slip fees. That's kind of the key point on this slide, 86% of them. And so that's kind of why we were targeting, rate adjustments primarily for slip fees. 7% comes from the restaurant lease, 4% from boat ramp parking and other revenues. So really addressing the deficiency through making rate adjustments for the slip fees is kind of where you can, have the largest impact there. And in our financial plan, we did assume that occupancy was going to remain constant under current conditions. And we did account for any reductions due to closures related to any capital improvements that might be done as well. So this slide shows you the operating expenses. The chart on the right is kind of just showing them broken out between personnel and other operating expenses, supplies, and whatnot. We use the fiscal year 23 budget as our baseline in the model. And I just want to point out that, the FY23 budget was already, at the starting point, a 10% increase over the fiscal year 22 costs. So you're already starting at higher costs there. And that's due primarily to increase in maintenance and inflation-related costs. We worked with staff through interviews to confirm that the expenses that were in the budget were reasonable. We wanted to make sure that if there were any periodic costs that weren't being captured or any other reoccurring things, that what we had was reasonable. And speaking with them, we had agreed that it was. So we escalated the FY23 budget on average by about 3% throughout the forecast period. So this graph is just kind of showing some of the results and as it relates to the cash balances. And this chart is assuming, the implementation of the rate adjustments that we had recommended, which would have been, 10% rate increases for 4 years and then 5% in the final year. So that's kind of the assumption underlying this graphic here. And also assuming that the capital funding plan that we input is what you all are going to execute. So as you can see on the right-hand side, that yellow line at the bottom is representing the policy target that's already established by the city. And so over the course of the forecast period, cash balances are pretty much always staying above that with these rate adjustments that we had recommended, except for in 1 year, which I think was going to be kind of a large year in terms of capital expenses. We did kind of have a recommendation a little bit of maybe if you wanted to target a 90-day O&M and capital reserve, which would be that blue line at the top. But obviously that's going to be hard to just jump right into when we're trying to kind of make up an existing shortfall. But just kind of showing how those cash balances are changing over time with the rate adjustment implementation. So the idea is that, as we implement these rate adjustments, we're going to be able to start building up our cash balances. So that way, as we need to pay for, capital expenses, there will be the ability to do so. And so since the start of COVID, ENR, the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index, has gone up by about 16%. So capital costs have vastly increased. So that's kind of expected, is that, in the future, those costs are going to be higher. And there are some major projects that were identified by staff and their CIP that was provided. That includes the replacement of marina docks, a new harbor master building, dredging, and some other improvements. And so you can see on the graph, on the left is kind of breaking it all down by the various types of infrastructure categories that were included in the CIP. And that CIP that was provided was like an 8-year CIP. So we just kind of included all of that in this slide. And on the right, that chart is showing you kind of the primary capital improvements that we had sort of identified and wanted to call out. So just, replacement of the docks, which the first two are to be funded by the interfund loan that I mentioned previously, short-term 3-year loan. There's going to be dredging. That's just right outside of our forecast period. The harbor master building to be, redone. That was initially going to be for $1 million, but we actually increased that after discussion with staff to $2.5 million, just based on how the market is right now surrounding those capital costs. We also pushed back the timing of that from 2026, I believe, to 2030, which is listed up here. And another assumption that you all should be aware of is that the penny tax is assumed to fund the harbor master building in this case. So that's how we kind of built that into our model. So that is one thing that is important for you all to know. And so just another thing we wanted to kind of look at are the operating expenses. So just to making sure that, the city is in line with other communities. And so we looked at operating expenses for the same marinas that we surveyed. And as you can see in column H, that's the second one from the right, we calculated the operating cost per slip. And so Dunedin's is, in line and even less than many of the other marinas that we compared to that were enterprise funds. The ones that were enterprise funds were Safety Harbor and Bell Harbor, for ones that were kind of municipal-owned marinas. And then, of course, private marinas, we don't have access to their, financials, so we can't comment on that. But relative to other municipal enterprise fund marinas, we are seeing that the city is in line. So the operating costs for the marina are not really what's driving kind of these needs for rate adjustments. It's really the capital.
And this is one of the items, obviously, we talked about at the first in January, as far as the rate structure itself. We just want to provide a little, some information for your discussion as far as rate structure opportunities or considerations.
Yeah, thanks. So we did some benchmarking again to look at the various rate structures that other marinas in the region were kind of implementing. So what we have on the slide is kind of assuming two different structures, either charging per linear foot or charging just in general for the specific slip size. And I'm going to do my best to try and define the difference between these for you all, just because I know it can be a little confusing, the differences here. So when we say that the rate structure is per linear foot, what that means is that the customer is going to be charged a constant rate for each additional linear foot of the slip. So as you can see on this chart, there are some marinas that have a horizontal line. That's just showing that no matter what the size of the slip is, when you break it down on a unit basis, it's the same for no matter what the size is. Whereas when we're referring to slip size, it's not a constant rate of increase relative to the size of the slip. There is an underlying function there that is, making that a little bit different. And so that's why on some of these, in the chart on the right, they kind of have a more zigzag shape because maybe smaller size slips, in some instances, maybe they're paying more per linear foot than larger size slips. So just kind of showing that to you all in this visual. Dunedin, you all have an A-B structure, so it's not per linear foot. There's one portion of the structure or of the function behind that that's allocating costs equally, operating costs equally amongst all the slips, and then allocating the capital costs across the area. So there's kind of two pieces there. So for the cost of service and the rate design, we looked at three different structures. We looked at keeping the current AB. We looked at doing the linear foot basis. And then another opportunity for doing, something under a slip size is just doing all of the costs under an area calculation. So on the chart on the right-hand side, I'm going to make sure I say the colors correctly. The blue line is our current fee. The green line is the linear foot, and the red is for area. And that's just kind of showing, what, based on the current rates for Dunedin, if we were going to break it down across those various rate structures, how is it breaking down kind of across the slip sizes? So as you can see, the current structure, AB structure, is similar in terms of recovery as the linear foot somewhat, except for maybe on the very smallest size slips where you can see that the current structure is maybe charging a little bit more. And then in terms of maybe under the 50 foot, which is, the R5014, that one, the current structure is maybe a little low compared to what the linear foot might be charging. And so you can go to the next one. So just as it relates to these ones, one key piece I just want to make sure is clear is that all of these rate structures are, we think fair and reasonable, and all of them are going to be generating the same amount of revenue. The way that we, set these up is so that way, no matter which structure you go on, they're going to be recovering costs the same amount. The difference is just amongst which slips are getting charged more or less. So just want to make sure that that is clear. And so, deciding which rate structure you want to go with is kind of dependent upon what your objectives are. For the current methodology, the AB one that I mentioned, things are partially allocated based on the area, partially allocated just by the number of slips. When we look at the area, rate design, which again is the red. We think that that one may be the most equitable, but it also results in the most change to the rate structure. So the chart on the right is kind of just showing the previous one on the last slide, but broken down onto a per linear foot basis, just so that way you can see the differences a little more clearly. So here you can see that that red line, which is representing the area rate structure, has a much larger gap relative to the other structures. And so that's just kind of showing you all visually that that's going to have maybe the most change to a larger amount of customers in the marina. The linear foot method is one that was common that we saw in the benchmarking. It also results in a similar cost recovery to the existing AB method. As you can see, the green line that's horizontal right at that $7 mark, that's the linear foot kind of rate here in the chart. And the blue line does not, it does go up and down, but it's staying pretty close to that line. And again, that blue line is the current structure, and where the large differences lie is around that 50-foot kind of slip size and on those very, very small slips. So it's going to result in a little bit of change, but not much to the changes to the rate structure for customers. We also think that the linear foot one is kind of easier to communicate to customers and to be able to implement. It's just one number you have to communicate. If you have a 30-foot boat, I'm just making up numbers, 30-foot slip, the linear foot rate is $10, that's going to be $300. If you have a 35-foot slip, $350. It's easier to communicate in that part rather than having to calculate each thing for each specific size slip. So that was kind of the objectives we were going off of. What's easy to understand? Is it going to be, recovering everything equally? Yes, it is. So moving forward.
We'll go now into the liveaboard and commercial charges and transient rates.
All right. So on our benchmarking, we did want to kind of compare as it relates to liveaboard and commercial surcharges. Right now, Dunedin has a liveaboard rate of $90. It's just a flat rate. Doesn't matter what size your slip is. And the commercial surcharge is a 40% surcharge, so 1.4 times whatever the slip fee would be. And when we looked at the benchmarking, there are only 3 other marinas out of the ones that we surveyed that have liveaboard use allowed. And the range of their fees was between about $200 to $225. So based off of that, Dunedin has a much lower liveaboard fee than what is in the region right now. So that may be a reason that it needs to be increased just to remain competitive in that regard. Also, another piece there is that the liveaboard fee has not been updated since, I believe, maybe in the 90s, if that is correct. It's been a very, very long time. So, that fee hasn't increased with inflation or anything else. And so there may be a reason to increase it because of that as well. And as it relates to the commercial, that one is just maybe not a very clear indicator based on the benchmarking, kind of if there's a set standard on what other places are doing. It really just varies. Some have 30% more, some are doing, things $1 per foot additional. Gulfport has kind of a flat extra fee there. Clearwater's doing per passenger. So that one is, maybe more determined based on kind of what the city thinks is appropriate in that regard for what policies that you think are appropriate. So kind of the recommendations we had for both the liveaboard and commercial for consideration are kind of highlighted in this red box here on the screen. At the top of the box, we list out options for commercial, either keeping that 1.4 surcharge, or we have another option that shows kind of what the rates would be like with a 1.5 surcharge. And you all had implemented a 10% increase on April 1st. So because the commercial surcharge is tied to the, slip price itself, the rates that are listed kind of in the same column that has the black box, those are the 1.4 rate, 463 would be what it is for commercial right now. Going to the 1.5 surcharge would add about a little over $30 to the monthly slip rate for commercial. So 1.5 is an option. For liveaboard, we looked at a couple of other options because it's just a flat fee right now. That fee did not get increased with your most recent 10% increase. So I believe it's still at that $90. And so we looked at just adjusting it by inflation, which would add, about $9 to the rate. We looked at kind of adjusting it based on the benchmarking and what we were seeing in the market. Excuse me, I think I misspoke. On the inflation adjusting, that would adjust it up to about 192. Excuse me, I misspoke on that. For the market-based one, for the benchmarking, that was calculated based on an average of those 200 to 225 range I mentioned previously, and with a 10% increase stacked on that, that takes you to about 236. And again, that's just a flat fee. Options 3 and 4 are tying things to the commercial surcharge, so kind of matching the way that the commercial charge is applied, and so kind of tying the charge to the size of the slip. So doing either a 40% additional based on the size of the slip or a 50% additional based on the size of the slip, similar to how the existing commercial is. And so there's a range listed up there, 107 to 184, or 134 to 230. So still kind of keeping you in line with what the inflation and the market rates would kind of put you at, but, adjusting it for the size of the slip. And so that was kind of based off the benchmarking. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to say here that those are the different options. When we were looking through this, we couldn't find, a large cost differential to provide service for liveaboard and commercial that we could justify based on the data we had. So that's why our recommendations are primarily based off of adjusted for inflation or the market and these specific fees here. So it's just kind of a policy decision as it relates to these additional charges. We also had a comparison for the transient rates and the non-residential charges. You all recently raised the transient rates just a few years ago. So those may not really need to be increased so much, but we did, do a comparison with some other marinas as well. The rate that we have listed up here is the residential rate for Dunedin. My understanding is that the non-residential rate is closer to $2. So if we're comparing that with the other marinas, the average of the neighboring ones at the bottom there is $243. So if we're comparing it with the residential rate, Dunedin's is fairly lower. Your non-residential rate of closer to $2 is maybe more in line. So you all could consider increasing that, but I don't think that we identified that as something that was imperative. Additionally, the other marinas that are municipal owned, many of them do have kind of a non-residential differential. And so those are kind of listed in column B there. But I do want to point out that in Dunedin, there are no non-residential slip users. There's a long wait list, and it's my understanding that residents get priority. So non-residential users don't really get to be in here unless they're, a transient and just in for a short time period.
Okay, we're going to take a quick look at benchmarking. This slide was one that was shared in January. It's just kind of taking a look at those surveyed marinas and the different types of amenities that are available or accessible for these marinas. I'm I'm not going to go through every single one of them. I know you've looked at this before. It's very, and again, I think Terry and Tristan would agree, it's very hard to compare, apples to apples. There's no really one marina that's like the other. But one of the questions that you had asked us to do is to kind of pull out the municipal marinas and then also take another look back at whether there were any changes to that data that we had collected last year and presented in January. So as far as what you're looking at right now, the only one that has changed on this slide here is St. Pete Municipal Marina. They did a flat 10% across the board increase in January of 2023. There has been discussion at Clearwater and I believe in one other marina as far as increases, but they haven't had any direction to date. So the comparison here also is showing Dunedin on the top row, which includes the 10% increase and still remains fairly low in comparison to the other marinas. So whereas I think in the last presentation we were closer to 35 to 40% difference, in some cases the 40 and 45 foot were just under 30% lower, and then up to 40% in the 50 foot, 45. One of the other follow-up questions from the last was in a discussion on utilities and capital, and we just want to take a look at this as well. This again is a repeat slide comparing the marinas and how they're monitoring electric usage, whether it's metered or whether it's a flat fee, separate utility charge, that sort of thing. So just wanted to kind of briefly revisit that. And then as far as the utility costs, we wanted to share kind of what we know right now and how it's broken down. As far as the total cost for the marina, we're looking at anywhere between $26,000 to $33,000. I believe we budget around $35,000, but as far as actual costs, we're a little bit lower. That represents about 3% of the expense of the entire budget. So I just want to make sure that that's very clear, that we're looking at a pretty small number in relation to the other expenses. How the billing is done currently, we've got the Harbor Master Building, dock, commercial wall dock and dock A, and then dock B, C, south wall, west wall, billed as one group, and then the PCO and fire spots, which are very incremental, small amount there. As far as metering goes, that was another topic of discussion. Just wanted to kind of put out some options or some considerations for metering as you're discussing and thinking through this. From Duke's perspective, they will charge $15 a month no matter what you do. If you use it, if you plug into it, or you do not plug into it, if they were to meter. So that kind of, if you're, based on the math, accounts for about an additional $30,000 a year in fees that are passed along to SLIP users. That basically means we're doubling the cost of the electric, bill, so to speak. They also have a minimum bill for users that's listed at $30 a month. So again, if you get a bill and you're not using your electricity, you're still going to get a bill. So the things that we're not, that we don't have information on yet is any additional infrastructure costs. So if there's any need to modify the pedestals, if Duke would charge any metering installation charges, and then to determine who is actually going to read the meters. If Duke is reading them or if our staff has to read them, then there's obviously potential staff implications there. For potential solutions, we just presented doing a trial metering with a random sampling to kind of test the differences. You can add a flat rate metering fee to all the slips. That's something that Tarpon does in lieu of metering. Or to add a personnel service charge monthly for metering, which is what Clearwater does. So the costs to the users would include the metering service fee and then obviously the actual electric usage. For the capital dock replacement. We know that we have Dock A scheduled in 2024. Some of the challenges, Lori has been a trooper. I think if I ask her one more time for costs, she's really tried to reach out to a lot of resources to get some true cost estimating for docks. The challenges is that we don't have anything designed yet. We don't have it engineered. We don't know where we want it. Are we replacing apples for apples? Are we looking at another product? So those are those scope challenges, not understanding kind of all the details of what would go into the dock replacement. Additionally, we have the condition, of the pilings and whether those need to be replaced or if we are able to work with what we have. And then also rerouting, removing, replacing the utility work, the electric and the plumbing. The other big piece early on in the beginning of this year was really the availability of marine contractors to even respond. They've been a little tied up down south, so whereas before we might be able to call and have somebody come out and give us a quote, it just hasn't been quite as easy yet. And then the other piece of that is really understanding how the replacements kind of fit into the Marina Master Plan. All right. We'll jump right into the community feedback sessions. What I've done here is kind of summarize some of the comments, and we'll go through them. And I apologize, on my computer screen, the typing was a little bigger. To kind of start from the very beginning of, or the more general comments, and then we kind of get down into the more specific comments, really was the understanding of the purpose of the rate study. It is a general practice. I went back, we talked with Jorge and Jennifer and Les to kind of review those enterprise funds a minimum every 5 years. There's so much changing as far as capital costs, construction costs, material costs. It's just a best practice to maintain review of our enterprise funds. So that was a question that we wanted to address and kind of explain that.
And just as Nicole, before you go on, as we do our research regarding the frequency of the rate studies, we're finding now, because the construction industry is so volatile, they're recommending that you do them 3 to 4 years instead of every 5 years, because things are changing so quickly. So go ahead.
Thank you. And then obviously there was a comment as far as the consultants, and the response being that they have the expertise in the modeling and the cost of service, the best practices, and then the benchmarking capabilities. Moving on to the general understanding of the rate increase. The concerns expressed were the compounding increases over the subsequent years, which is one of the reasons why the consultants and staff had recommended increases over time to kind of be able to reassess, which obviously we recommended that first year, and then again take a look at what those capital needs are and really be able to plug in some of those real numbers instead of the estimated numbers we currently have. And again, we want the resident marina to remain reasonable for their users. And then the understanding of the rate increases is really being driven from the capital costs and the lack of the existing capital reserves to cover those needs in the future. So that's what's really kind of driving this discussion as far as increase goes. I will say that from everyone we talked to, from the Board of Finance, the MAC, the community sessions, I think everybody understands that the increase was imperative and that it needed to happen, and that we are the cheapest marina in the area, but it was kind of those future kind of years and outlooks and kind of really understanding that. Another item was the access to the marina being impacted by events in the park, which could restrict access. And so we listed out the events that occur in Edgewater Park during the year and the days that they occur. Potentially about 6 days, and then another piece of that access was the availability of parking, the quantity of parking spaces, the designated spaces being filled by others, public, boat club users, and then being able to really enforce that. So I know we had talked about, speaking with our CPOs and, requesting that they're taking another look and enforcing those parking designations. There was a brief discussion on the restaurant lease and how it compares to market rates. Again, this is something that actually helps the enterprise fund in kind of adding revenue to the fund and supporting it. And it also is a community and a marina user benefit. There was a large discussion as to the marina as a community asset, and then what expenses and capital are designated for the enterprise fund versus the general fund, and then understanding, the larger impacts of the marina master plan and how that's going to change those capital requirements, so that, but I think the understanding is even based on, the study is based on addressing what we have now. And replacing it and maintaining it. And as far as, just looking at that alone, we're already kind of behind in the funding those capital replacements, regardless of what the master plan is going to tell us. We, of course, want to involve the community when we get to that point in master planning, and then to have them kind of review what assets and the, design and layout similar to any large kind of construction project that we have. And then as far as the Marina Master Plan itself, we try to put some figures as far as a timeline goes behind what that's going to look like from posting the RFP this summer, going through the evaluation and negotiation period later in the year, and then starting to collect data, go through the design and review and the stakeholder engagement piece, where we would be kind of at the presentation of that plan sometime next year between September and October. The other comment was using alternative sources of funding outside of the enterprise fund. And then again, we want to reiterate what Tristan had said, was that the plan, the financial plan, assumes use of penny fund for the Harbor Master building. And then the asset kind of ties into the equity piece as far as a comparison of funding towards other community assets. That was a discussion. There's concern over distribution, equitable distribution of cost across marina users. And then again, we dove into the metering discussion and then increases in other fees, which included the ramp fees, and then a discussion on the benchmarking, which again, we wanted to state that it's very difficult to compare one marina to the other. They're all different. They're in different locations. They offer different things. And then that the benchmarking was not a basis for decision-making as far as the rate increases. So we'll move on to discussion. Which we just wanted to kind of revisit the items that were presented in January, but there was not a discussion or direction given as far as the rate structure, any potential changes to the surcharges, including the liveaboard, the commercial or the transient charges, potential increases in the parking and boat rate ramp fees, and then obviously coming back at some point next year to review the rates again and where we are with the next increase that is projected or recommended to occur in October of 2024.
So there's not a increase in this fall's budget?
No. No, October 2023, there is not.
Okay. All right.
The increase on April 1st. Right.
No, I remember that. I just wasn't sure if there was another one.
Right.
Okay. All right, so before we get into all our questions and debate, most of the time we make residents who are here to speak sit here for hours and hours and listen, so I'm just going to open it up and let the public come forward and speak now, so that if they need to move on, they can. So anybody want to come and speak to this item, please feel free to do so and give us your name and address for the record.
Harold Shoemaker, Virginia Street. How y'all doing? I know most of y'all here. I just want y'all to make sure that y'all are listening to the slip renters and their needs. There's a reason why Dunedin's rates are lower than everyone else's, because the amenities are much lower than all the other marinas. As Nicole mentioned, you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to pineapples, and just because the word apple is in pineapple doesn't mean it's the same thing. So just take that in mind. Consider what we need here for Dunedin, and forget about the other marinas. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak? Hey, Zeke, give us your name and address for the record.
Zeke Dorica at 736 Scotland Street. I've been on the Marine Advisory Board. I've been chair, like Harold has, for quite a while during the conception. And I'd just like to say one thing, that the management of the marina and the Marine Advisory Board is broken, and we need to fix it. It's going to take a lot of work to fix it, and I think you can start there. And I'm not against the rate increase. I was at the Marine Advisory Board meetings, and not one person objected to the rate increases. But the way we go about doing it is not fair, and that's not Dunedin. Dunedin has always been a fair, equitable city that looks out for the little guys, and this is not happening. And the one way you can start to look into this would be to do an investigation into those last capital improvement funds or capital improvement projects that we did, the dredging and the wall replacement. I think if you look into that, in my estimation, we spent over 1.7 million that we didn't have to spend. And that created a lot of these problems in the first place. So I think, take a look in the mirror, we could resolve this. We got good people here. So thank you, Commission.
Thank you, Zeke. Jennifer, hang on. Jennifer? Would you like to tell folks, oh, I see somebody else might want to come forward. Would you like to tell folks too the recent step you've taken?
In terms of oversight? Yeah, so I've actually reallocated, if you will, some of the job responsibilities in the city manager's office because we're short-staffed in engineering and in the public works department. Our deputy city manager is still acting as the city engineer. And so that makes him pretty darn busy. And so I actually took one of his larger departments, which is Parks and Recreation. That director is a direct report to the deputy city manager. He now reports to me, and that department reports to me, and along with that, the marina. And so I will be at the Marine Advisory Committee meetings. I will have ultimate oversight over the marina during the course of this. I do anyway, obviously.
Yeah, but you're going to be more.
But I will be actively involved, yes, in that committee and in the management of the marina.
And that's not due to any mismanagement that
no,
you're
it
saying.
is not. It's because
it's a reallocation of workload,
right.
And because this has sometimes been contentious.
Yes, and that department is a large department that labor intensive, if you will, just by virtue of what it is Parks and Recreation does, and also the marina, same. And so, you know, I want to be actively involved in the day-to-day operations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward and speak? Give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, hello, I'm Sharon Williams, 1891 Del Oro Court in Dunedin. I'm the Finance Board representative on the Marine Advisory Committee and the chair from last year. So I've been listening to your meeting at home for since you started, 10 o'clock. I don't have much to say other than to remind you that the Marine Advisory Committee voted unanimously to agree with most of the consultants' report in terms of the 10% a year rate increase. I think most people are hoping and probably pleased that it doesn't appear that it's going to increase again this year and wait for 2024. I think the Marine Advisory Committee believes that, and myself as well, that the liveaboard rate you should probably look at going ahead and increasing that, possibly even this year, not waiting until 2024. we recommended the 1.4 surcharge just as commercial slip renters. There's lots of options there, but it looked from the presentation that they were similar. That's really about all I'm not sure I have all the detail about the ramp and parking fees. It seems to me, because of the backups on the weekend, that those could be increased at some point, even though they're a small percentage. You know, if the slip renters are going to take an increase every year of 10%, it seems like everyone that uses the marina should be involved in that opportunity to pay more. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for your service on the MAC committee. Anyone else? Okay.
Mayor, may I address the equitability question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So, and I think that I need to lay this out here for the City Commission very clearly, that when we first started this rate study, and I've said many times that a rate study for marina is not very common. Usually there's just a across-the-board increase and we're all on our way, but for the fact that we understand how actively involved our residents are in this marina and how important it is to them. And there's been lots of discussion about whether the marina is an asset or an amenity, and we're treating it as an amenity in terms of it is, as you know, only our residents can use it unless the slip is vacant, in which case a non-resident can move into that slip. And when we first started this rate study, and Raftella started giving us some numbers, my direction to the consultant was minimize the rate shock. And so, and that's how we arrived at the 10% and then the 10% in 2024. Some of the residents during the course of the community meetings thought that that was way too much. It actually is just barely keeping up with inflation. So it is the minimum that we need in order to address our capital needs within the marina. We are not making money. We are not building the reserve. It's a 25% reserve requirement in that particular fund. And so I would, during the course of those community meetings, some folks felt that they were being priced out of the marina, and I couldn't disagree more. As you know, the Board of Finance recommended front-load it by 25%, and we're not recommending that we do that. And so I just wanted to explain to the Commission that our approach to this was to enhance and support that equitability within our marina, but also so that we're able to realize those capital improvements that are essential to the marina to keep the operations stable, if you will, or keep the capital amenities in that marina where they are right now. And so, you know, I've had briefing with all of you yesterday, all 5 of you. I just wanted to explain to you staff's approach, and that if there is a general feeling that it's not enough, then that was because of my direction to minimize the rate shock. And we are more than willing to take whatever consensus direction that we have from the Commission today to address that one way or another if necessary. But it really is the whole purpose of this rate study and the 10% and the 10% in 2024 was to minimize that rate shock, to encourage equitability within this rate study. So I appreciate the public's comments, and there are all sorts of different ways to skin this cat. We believe that we've struck at the chord that we need, the soft spot that we need, in order to support our marina for our residents. Thank you.
Okay.
I just had one question, not to put you on the spot. Mr. Schumacher, is it? Do you mind answering about the amenities? I just want to make sure I understand your comment. We have a chart that we got in our staffing, and it looks like our amenities are fairly comparable. We don't have laundry. We don't have
they're not comparable.
Fishing.
No, we don't have amenities.
No.
We don't have amenities.
And I guess
we don't have Wi-Fi. I just spent 4 days in Clearwater.
Say it again. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just spent 4 days over in Clearwater. Took the boat over.
Okay. Yeah.
They have air-conditioned restrooms, air-conditioned showers. They have rest areas. They have areas for the visitors to go sit inside, to relax and so forth. They have on-premises restaurants. We have the one out at the marina. But I don't consider shops an amenity for a marina. Things like the bait shops, fuel, things of this nature, those are amenities for a marina. So when I look at marinas, and I've been to quite a few marinas, we basically don't have anything compared to the other marinas. And even the facilities that we have for restrooms and showers are not that good.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Let's see, this is what happens. We can't do the back and forth, I'm sorry. I don't want, Sharon wanted to come up and speak to it too, so I'm just saying, I don't want to do the back and forth.
I think it's important to fully understand what a citizen.
No, that was fine,
Yeah,
but now we
that's
have, but I'm just saying, now we have another person that wants to come and speak to it, so that's what happens. And so it's important not to do
I
that.
consider these advisors also our experts, so I
I get you.
think it's
just-
appropriate to understand what our citizens are
I
actually saying.
agree, I'm just saying, if I do it for them, at the next thing we talk about, and I don't do it for them, then I have to be consistent.
Just so you know, in that case, we were doing it for me, and I'm
I
trying to
was.
make a good, fully educated decision.
I was. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is go through the decision and discussion points, each separately. We can ask our questions, have our conversation, give our direction, and then move on to the next item to try to be some kind of organized. So the first item is the rate structure. What you're looking for consensus direction is whether we maintain the A and B model or change to the linear foot model or area, which is not recommended. What's recommended by staff is the linear foot model. So does anybody have questions or feedback on that?
Feedback?
Go ahead.
Oh, I got tons of feedback. I don't think I really have any questions. But there was something that I thought I read about liveaboards, and someone had said that the way Gulfport does it, it was $240.
Okay, well, that's under surcharges next.
Where did I?
That's under that's the next subject.
I'm just, because we're talking about rates, right?
You
Rate
know, we're
structure.
talking about the model, not
Yeah,
the rate.
Exactly.
The model.
Exactly, so.
The next thing would be liveaboard.
Okay, well,
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to keep it separate.
Okay, so, obviously, in the rate structure is the maintaining A and B model, and then there was a question about about electricity, and the like, and I want to make some comments about that. First of all, the A and B model is a concept that is not understood by very many people in the marina, but let me solve it. I'll solve it for you. Longtime boater. You want to go to a marina, you go to the marina and you say, what do you have available? And he says, I have that slip right there. How much is that slip? That slip is $1. That slip's $1. Doesn't matter how they calculate it, it's $1. I don't say, well, how'd you come up with $1? It's $1. If I would like to have it, I'd pay $1 for it. So the complexities really are not the issue. The issue is the total fairness. And the A and B model was brought up to be very, very fair. And it was based on the concept of square footage. And that's how people rent and lease facilities, either buildings or houses or renting a house or what have you. And so we covered the A pricing, saying we're all the same, we all need the same service, we all have the same access to management or whoever's managing the marina, and whatever the operational costs are, we're all going to share in that. So the regular operational costs came under the A, and that's a single fee, we all pay the same. And then the B was where you pay by the square footage. In the study that was done for Clearwater, which is a truly professional study, professional rate study, the gentleman starts off, and we provided that to the commission in 2020. His comment was the best and most fair way to do a rate in a marina is by square footage, because that's how we do that. That's how we rent things out. And that's the best way to do it. We already have that. We have that in place. It is so simple to do the calculation. The Marine Advisory used to do a lot of the calculations for for the rates and when rates had to come up. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how did we get to this $90? I think things are being talked out here that aren't necessarily correct. The $90 came from what's the cost of electricity? And somebody started paying for electricity. If I wanted to have electricity in the marina and run my electricity all week or for a month or whenever I wanted to do it, I had to pay $90 a month. So Liveaboard paid, usually wanted to have air conditioning, so Liveaboard paid the $90. I could have had the same thing and I paid $90. And that's where the $90 is and came from. Just in reference, one of the reasons why it was actually left at 90 way back when, and I believe that time period may be as old as 2010, was that the perception was we were not going to be having level boards, and so they decided not to raise the rates, not to raise the $90, and not to even go in and see what the cost of the different uses of electricity were. There were only 6 boats using electricity at that time period, and it went down to 4, and then it came back up again. But there were only 4 boats, and the largest boat was 44 foot. So the smallest boat was 28, I believe, was 28 foot. So they were all pretty similar, somewhat similar. Obviously, the 44-foot boat used more. People say, why do we even talk about this? Because of fairness. And what the people in the marina always, generally, what they want is they just want it to be fair. And if they come up and talk to them, if I talk to someone in the marina, they want it to be fair. Just what's fair? Is it fair that this person has this or this person has that? No, that's probably not fair unless they're paying for it. So the rate structure is incredibly easy to calculate. You can do it in probably you can do it in less than 10 minutes if you know how to use a computer, because you have the square footage and you just need to determine what the capital requirements are. For us to decide whether we want to change the model or not, I have seen nothing to justify changing the model that we use. Most importantly, I've seen nothing that tells me what the rate ought to be. We're just talking about the structure. What the rate ought to be, because I haven't seen what the plan is. I really don't know what the plan is. So I'd really like to be able to talk about that at some point in time before we go any further down in here, when we're going to start doing this. And by that, what I mean is, and I'll make the statement. Let's lose this word benchmarking for purposes of conversation about any of this stuff. That's great. That's great for seeing where you stand. When I'm in business, I want to know, how am I doing? How's my marketing team doing over this marketing team? I can do some benchmarking, or I do some benchmarking to see if a unit that I'm responsible for is purchasing things properly, et cetera, et cetera. But this benchmarking is, forget the word. Forget the word. If you want to know what's happening, you can just come and talk to, we got a group of 10 people down there that will take their time and tell you everything you need to know about what's going on in the marina. They're active. We do not have an active marina, in my personal opinion. And that's due to a variety of different things. But so the rate structure, to change the rate structure now is meaningless. I've watched this go on for 3 years now, and the reasons given and the mistakes that were made in the calculations, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need to change the rate structure. That's not the issue at all. Just so we all know, I'm fully supportive of increases. We need increases. We should have had increases before. Why we haven't had increases in the last 3 years is beyond any one of us that sit down there with a boat. So the rate structure, the discussion points here are sort of difficult, but I'm just going to leave it at rate structure and hope that we can come back and talk about when we should do this and why we should do this and how we should do this. I'd like to make another comment, And that is that when I was active on either attending or being on the Marine Advisory, we had two numbers we used to look at, and that's changed. We've got our finance director in the back here, but we used to know what is our reserve percent requirement?
25%.
Is it 25?
25.
For the Marina? 25 for the Marina. So we focused on the 20, whatever that number was, 25%, that was operational, because that's what the reserve is for. It's for operational. And then we had a set of monies over here that we had set aside for A, B, and C dock and for dredging and for other things that are coming up. The requirements for those issues began way back in 2010, 2008, or even before some of that. Our first monies we spent was spent in 2015, and that was on ADOC, and I think we spent $35,000 or $40,000. So we already started, and we've had so many different dates for doing ADOC that if we're not careful, ADOC is going to go, there's going to be problems with ADOC. There are problems with ADOC. We were told when we were told that the dredging was going to take over the ADOC, getting us a new ADOC, that they would put some money into ADOC. We said, well, that comes out of, we pay for that. That comes out of operation. When are we going to do ADOC? Well, we were told we were going to do ADOC the very next year, which would have been in 2021. And we said, oh my God, what are you going to do, kick us out of here again? So but now we're 2024, and we haven't started, and we don't know really what we want to do. So the rate structure, if the question is just maintain A or B or change to linear, just stay with what we have, the A and B. Works perfectly well. Easy, so easy for somebody to calculate, and people just need to know what they're going to pay for their slip.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, your questions or feedback about maintaining the A and B or changing to the linear foot has been recommended.
So, well, I mean, just kind of putting out my thoughts on this, and I know that the Marine Advisory Board looked at it as going to linear square foot. I don't see a big difference, obviously, when you look at it between what we're doing now and linear square foot. Does seem more understandable. I mean, when I look at it from a common sense standpoint, which is probably a bad term, it seems like the logical way would be square footage. I mean, obviously the most equitable. When I look at our current rates now, and I look at where we're more out of whack seemingly in the market, it seems to be at the higher end with the bigger boats, and so they seem to be getting the better deal somehow by not having square footage. So I just wonder, is there a thought over time that we should get to square footage? And I know, because I think your biggest thought now is you don't want to have this, we're increasing the rates, no reason to throw everything up in the air and have a lot of discombobulation along with it. I'm just wondering, is that maybe sought after to be at that at some point?
You mean the area?
Yeah, the area, yeah.
Because we're recommending the linear.
Yeah, no, I got that.
I can just maybe comment a little bit as it relates to the structures. I can't speak to maybe what are the goals or objectives of, the city or the marina in terms of how they want the rate structure to be. Ultimately, that's a policy choice. We just looked at some different options to, present to you all for consideration. And we had also kind of agreed that we thought that going just off of area is the most equitable. The current method, a portion of that is based off area, and then a portion of that is allocated equally. So it's part of that function is based off area, but not all of it. And so, I'm not sure if that is a choice that you all are trying to move to in the future. Again, it's a policy decision for you all to go that way. We recommended the linear foot structure just in terms of ease of communication and that it's common at other marinas. I think Vice Mayor Torga had mentioned, Clearwater's rate study had maybe mentioned doing things based off of area because it's more equitable. And, we had agreed that's the most equitable route I do believe Clearwater charges per linear foot as well, though. So,
What it shows.
yeah, so.
Well, in my mind, anyway, and staff's recommendation would be that we would implement it when we implement the rate increase. Originally, in January, we hadn't really discussed at length implementing it over time. We can certainly do that at the City Commission's direction, but
I don't think that's what she's asking.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, it was what I was asking. I mean, I guess, you know.
I mean, Mo, I thought you were asking transitioning from linear to area in the future.
Over time.
I thought that's
Yeah,
what
over
you were
time,
saying.
but I think that's what
Yeah,
you're.
we would do it when we do the rate increase.
You would do the linear square foot. But I guess philosophically, does it seem like something you'd want to attain in square footage in the, you know, since it's a more equitable method, or is that just something you haven't given a thought to right now? Because you've got a lot of variables to.
Well, there are a lot of variables, yeah, for sure. Philosophically, though, I mean, the recommendation's analytical, and then when we went to new rate structure, we calculate the new rate structure on linear.
I mean, there's some challenges with square footage. Obviously, not all the slips are exactly the same, so there's a little bit, you know, there's some work there. But I think the reason why that was not recommended is just because of the really significant changes that it would cause or create. You can kind of see here where, you know, on the lower end where we are right now, you know, with our current fee and linear foot, both models are very similar. Where you see the differences between the two are, again, at the very lowest end, the smallest slip, and then right around that 50-foot slip mark, whereas the linear foot kind of equalizes it, where it's kind of a gradual increase across all sizes. Our current model kind of dips for that size. And then as a comparison for the square footage, you could see where our current rate is right now, and then how drastic of an increase that we would be kind of putting out there for our larger slip users, which I think would be challenging.
Yeah, and I get that, but if you look at the market, and I get it, it's an enterprise fund, fully understand that. But if you look at the market, the best deal going is for the bigger boats. So that would make me think over time. Now, I'm going to support the linear square foot. I think you guys have put a lot of work into this thing, and you've got a unanimous vote over with the Marine Advisory on that. But I think, you know, over time, I kind of want to watch that, because it does seem to make sense to be kind of a, you know, North Star view as to maybe go into that. But I will listen and learn, so that's my comments.
Commissioner?
Yeah, so, you know, looking at the data, there's really not a lot of difference between the linear square foot and the A plus B method. And that's reiterating what everybody else has been saying. And the linear foot method does provide an appearance of you know, essentially equality. But I'll just speak from personal experience. Not all slips are created equal.
No, they're not.
And just taking a personal example, I would rather back into a wider slip when I've got two hatteresses on either side than a slip that, same length, that is narrower. And I would gladly pay more money for that sort of ability to do that. So subsequently, I think the most equitable. The other thing about the linear foot method is obviously it is easier to communicate. You know, it does give that appearance of equality. But with that said, I think that to be afforded the luxury of having just a little bit more square foot for your slip size, you know, I don't think there's a lot of boaters out there that would be against paying a little extra for that. So I'm going to support the A plus B.
Yeah, you just lost me. You went on and on about linear and said you're supporting the A plus B.
Yeah, no, I wanted to make sure that there's a very distinct comparison.
I see.
But the A plus,
Gotcha.
okay, all right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, just for the public's knowledge, what is the difference between area and square foot?
So for the actual dock, obviously we never charge by the boat size, but the dock size. So if the length of the dock is 30 feet, then that's what it would be charged on. So for instance, $7 a foot, a linear foot.
Right.
And then for the square footage size, which we're referring to as area, is the length by the width, which kind of speaks to what Commissioner Walker talked about as far as you might have a 30-foot slip, but one might be 10 feet wide and one might be, 15 feet wide or 20 feet wide. So there are some kind of nuances between the two.
There is nuance between square foot and area. No, because I'm not talking about linear foot.
Square foot and area are the same.
Right.
Okay, because we use both right, we talk about the AB structure, and under that, we talk about square foot.
Yes.
But then, all by itself, we talk about area. And so for the public's information, why are we using two different words to mean the same thing? And that is at least confusing to me, if not the public in general.
If you'd like me to just give a little explanation between the AB and the area for you, I can do that. Just when we're talking about square footage in terms of the AB method, that's because, there's two pieces to how it gets calculated. Part A is based on operating expenses allocated equally to all of the slips, regardless of the size.
Right.
Part B is based on the square footage of the slip. So the AB methodology has only one portion of it based on area, whereas when we talk about just the entire area structure, that on this is, the red line, that's the entirety of the costs for that particular slip are based on area. There's not, this other portion that's, equally allocated. It's
Right.
all based on an area.
But under and this is so irrelevant at the end, but I don't know why I'm going down this rabbit hole. But under the B portion, instead of saying square foot, we could have said area.
Yeah, square foot is
Or
just
under the area
units.
method in general, we could have just said square foot.
Yes, they're interchangeable.
Okay, right, they're in that, and that's all that I needed to know. I know there's the A component of the AB, but I just wanted to understand the difference between the square foot and the area.
Yeah,
So-
certainly.
So thank you very much. Because I'm focused on equitable, and, but I'm also focused on trying to listen to the Marine Advisory Committee and the renters who are already there. I don't have a boat in the marina. And so it's hard for me to interject my own personal views on it that are impacting others. I believe from an equitable standpoint, I certainly like I don't know why the area seems to be drastically different from the AB method if both of those.
It's for the bigger boats where it's different.
Yeah.
That's who, the
Right.
bigger boats are taking
And so
the
for
brunt
me,
of it.
that area is better, and I know that would, but apparently if we're doing the AB, because I heard that with the A structure, or the area rate structure, that was gonna have some upfront challenges for us. But I don't understand that upfront challenge if we're already calculating the area under the AB method. So we already know that portion of the rate structure, so it seems to me the difference between the two is just getting rid of the A.
And I mean, Terry is in the
Right.
cloud here. He's on by Zoom. He's joined us. He's been listening for a while. He said he's certainly happy to jump in. But yes, the red line, as far as this moving to the square footage or area calculation, again, was the most equitable, but because of the differences. However, his comments, and Terry, if you're here, feel free to jump in. You certainly could switch to that method over time. Like that was a comment from Commissioner Franny.
Because I would be focused on the equitable. And so if the Marine Advisory Committee is recommending linear, I just want to make sure with their recommendation, they're taking into consideration the inequities and listening to the smaller boat owners. And it's not coming from the bigger boat owners that would be at a disadvantage of going to area. That's my only concern. But how the rate structure is structured, if the marina, the renters as a whole are okay with whatever the rate structure is, then who am I to have input on that? leave it up to them. So I would put it back on the Marine Advisory Committee and making sure that they are representing the entire basin, small boats equally with the bigger boats, and what is most equitable for all the renters in the marina, then that's the rate structure I'm for.
I think if you go back to the minutes, you can see they talked about all of that. Because I think we got the minutes in the last time we talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with the linear. I do think the area is the best way to go. But I also think that, you know, this is what we're talking about is for a moment in time. And when the master plan is completed, a lot of things are going to change. And maybe at that time, you know, what if I'm not saying we're going to, so nobody panic, but what if we add slip somewhere? What if that happens? What if that's the decision? What if that's what the recommendation of the master plan and everybody else buys into? Well, if you're going to do that, that's the time to kind of look at, you're probably going to add slips that we don't have today, or the ones that are always sold out, or whatever. And so that's kind of, I think, when you look at that next step. I don't disagree. I think area is the way to go. I think A and B is extremely difficult to explain to anybody. I think the average person doesn't understand it. You know, I just think it's extremely difficult. I think the linear is easier to communicate. You know, with the A and B, the A is the operations piece. So you're saying that the big slip is paying the same operation cost as the little slip. And I don't agree with that at all, especially because of usage. Water, electricity, all of those things. And at this moment, we're not charging all those things. I don't think operations should be the same for every size slip. I mean, even in this program that you were showing as the cost per slip. Well, that's not really true if we stay A and B. Because Patrick Donahue's big slip is the same as CDOC slips for operations. That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense to me. When you have a bigger house, you have more costs. Same thing. So that's why I'm okay with going to linear foot as the baby step, knowing that we're going to have this master plan and things may change. And I think during the master plan, while you're not debating that kind of thing, I think whatever everybody decides to do, I'll be long gone, but whatever people decide to do from this master plan.
You'll never be long gone.
No, I'll be like Deborah. I'll be in here every week. I think that will also dictate, do we stay with the linear or do we go to area? And so, you know, I think we go with, sorry.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But it's, if there's a thought to going to area and we're currently AB, to me, it doesn't make sense to go from AB to linear and then, oh, well, maybe we'll change that again. I think there needs to be stability among our models. If we're going to make a change, let's make a change. But don't go from AB to linear to maybe area.
Well, no, I'm not saying we are, and that's the thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in this master plan that may dictate certain things and may not. That's what I don't know. I just know that, look, staff's recommending it. They've done a lot of research. The Marine Advisory Committee is recommending the linear. While I do agree, I think area is the better way to go. It's not something I need to jump on my sword for, is what I'm saying. There may be other things, but that just isn't it. And I would assume that with the linear, is that going to get applied with our new budget?
So
I would think it would.
Yeah, and I would.
Just to get it out of the way.
Right, and I want to talk to staff about how that would be. I mean,
Okay.
we need to send notice to.
There'll be some adjustments.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a rate increase, it's a rate structure increase. So, I mean, but I would assume that would be maybe with our new budget.
Right. I think
And then
that's
any
fair.
other
That
increases would
provides for plenty of
come
notice and
later.
yeah.
Okay, seems like we have consensus, enough consensus anyway, three, stating to move forward with the linear. Yes? That's what I heard from you. That's what I heard from you.
Yeah, I'm okay with linear. I mean, I'm not a boater. Obviously your words are compelling. But I mean, I got to fall back to staff's work and
the Marina
12-0
Advisory
vote by the Marina Advisory to go to linear. I do think square footage is the way to go, and I think we should be looking at that heavily as we move forward and preparing people for that. But I'm with you. I don't want to fall on a sword over with all the work that's been, even though I'm not a boater, so I'm trying to figure it out,
Well, and I appreciate that. I honestly, the models are not dissimilar at all, really. And, I just look at the components of that A plus B, and that's what currently exists. But again, I'm not, it's not something I'm.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, sure, I surely will. I actually think that this is trying. We don't even know what we're going to do to that marina yet. And now we want to change the rate structure. They've been talking about this for 3 years. I have no idea why would you even consider this at this point in time. We've got other issues that are in here that need to be attended to. This rate structure, this is honestly a ridiculous discussion as far as I'm concerned. At least we use square footage in the one we have. Wait until we know what we're going to do. We don't even know what we're going to do with ADOC. How many slips are we going to lose or aren't we? Et cetera. I don't see anything happening here for a year and a half at least. But we should have some increases, so let's just do some increases to our current structure. People are not confused about what they have to pay at the marina. Okay? Here's what the slip is. Now, granted, we could actually charge each one of those slips independent based on the square footage, because they're not all exactly the same. But we broke it down into 5 or 6 categories, and we sit here and talk about something that, I don't even get it. It doesn't do anything different. It doesn't do anything. What does it do? Why are we changing? Why would anybody spend any time on this?
So Jennifer, why don't you answer that question? Because I can't answer what motivated everybody.
And my big thing that comes out, I get what you're saying, John, but why was it a 12-0 vote of the Marine Advisory Committee?
Well, they're in.
Why?
Someone made a comment.
I mean, I just need to understand that, because I get what you're saying.
I heard the comment, and I think it was disrespectful.
That may have been.
Very disrespectful.
And that's your opinion, and I'd probably we could all have the same opinion. It doesn't matter.
No offense to the person, because I love the person very much. I just thought it was really disrespectful to say on public.
So I have to make this decision. I'm accountable for 37,000, but I'm accountable for everybody that's in that marina. And just because a committee comes to me and says, oh, well, let's do this. What did they discuss? Who discussed it? We weren't there. I was there at enough of them to listen to it. I listened to enough of this back in 2020 and found it ridiculous for even taking somebody's time to discuss it back then. We had bigger problems than that.
Okay, can we give Jennifer the chance to respond? You wanted to change from AB to linear Y.
Right. So as we were doing the rate study and looking at the rate structure and how we applied the rate structure, there was lots of discussion about how complicated it is. And I understand Vice Mayor saying that it's very understandable. I think it's very understandable, the third or fourth explanation of it. And from my perspective, and staff's perspective, and the consultant's perspective, we wanted to find a delivery method that was easier for the slip renters to understand and to apply when they're figuring out their budgets for their slips. As the mayor had said, this is not exactly a field where you die on at all. We found out, though, that the linear model really got you to almost exactly the same place as the A and B model. And so that's why staff is recommending the linear model, along with the consultant and the Marine Advisory Committee. It was really, we felt that it was apples to apples as far as the expenditure goes, and a much simpler formula to apply, and that's it.
And other people, are they using the AB model?
So they're
I mean, what I
split
saw
between
in there,
area
they weren't.
and linear. We're not finding AB model anywhere.
They should. They should. It's far surpasses the linear.
So do you agree that a large slip on A dock should pay the same operations as the slip on C dock that's so much smaller?
So do you know where you know what your operational expenses are?
I do. I do.
Okay,
Do you think that should be the same?
Why not?
So if you have a big house, you should pay the same? You pay the same electricity, the same
It's not-
water?
No,
You pay, that's part of operations.
Oh, I hope not. I hope not.
No, but I mean, it's a part of the costs that
No,
are
no,
built
ma'am.
into operation.
No, we've got to discuss that. We should not be paying for electricity the way we're paying for electricity
Okay, well, that's
today.
different.
Well, it
But what
certainly
I'm
is. That's
saying-
why I say it's
okay,
complicated.
All right,
the way
you're
you got it
yelling
set
at
up.
me now, and I'm really not appreciating it.
Oh, well.
Really, you're yelling at me now. So I'm just saying, so you disagree, that was a simple answer. We need to move on because we have 55 minutes to cover the other 3 items. So,
Mayor?
yes, ma'am.
I know that this will not make you happy, but would it be possible to ask Sharon Williams to come up and, as the former chair of the Marine Advisory, to just kind of summarize the reason for going 12.0 for linear square foot? Or do you not want to be put on the spot?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, if that's okay.
It's your birthday, I don't want to fight with you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
In a way, it's kind of humorous that you're up here all arguing about something that's not a real big deal. AB was probably okay with most slip renters. A lot of them may not understand the calculation exactly. I believe that some of the people on the Marine Advisory Committee, especially who are not slip renters, didn't really understand how that's calculated when we discussed it. We only discussed, did we want to recommend linear feet or the AB method? And primarily, and maybe only because it seemed more simple, we voted to do linear foot. Nobody wanted to do area because we thought it was too much disparity and too much of a change. So I personally don't think it matters a lot which one you go to, but in my mind, when I led the meeting, I said, I really don't care which way it is, and had a discussion. And I think AB seems more equitable, and it would stay with what you're doing now until you have more information.
But that's not what the committees
discussed.
discussed.
The Marina Advisory Committee voted to go to linear feet primarily to simplify, and because we didn't see much difference between AB and linear feet.
Thank you very much. That helps a lot. Yeah, I
I'm
mean.
trying to give direction, so I need to know what the consensus is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I didn't want to sit up here and argue about something that's much ado about nothing. I don't disagree. Why don't we, this is just me, leave it AB, and we have a lot more to learn here in the next year and a half. And we're doing our, doing our rate increases, and we got a lot more to discuss, but I'm okay with leaving it A and B based on those comments, because it doesn't sound like it's a really big deal to anybody.
Jeff?
The AB structure seems to me, at least, it holds an equitable portion in it, in that calculation. But if you look at the graphs, the difference between the linear feet and the AB is negligible. I don't know what the difference would be with changes in rates, but it seems to me I don't want to do both at the same time. Right? I think it's either we change the rate structure and just to acknowledge what the change is. And then that way we can, knowing what the change is, we'll be able to understand the impact of a rate increase. But to put this change in the middle of also discussing rate changes, I think it's, even though it's marginal, I would rather stay with the AB personally.
All right, well, you got, you've got your consensus direction.
We do.
But, you know, at some point, again, through the master plan and looking at what we're going to do and see how it all affects everything, you know, I think all of those things should be considered. All
Very
right,
good,
now,
thank you.
move on to the next item. Get back to that.
50 minutes to the birthday cake, so just to give people a little, you know.
Okay, so the surcharges, which are changes to liveaboard, commercial, and transient. You have made recommendations on the liveaboard, the commercial, and did you make changes on transient? I don't think I saw transient recommendations.
No, honestly, in talking with Lainey ahead of the meeting, really kind of that difference is, you know, we are charging our residents a lot less. She made the example of somebody who's wanting to kind of just leave their boat in the marina for the weekend as a resident versus taking it in and out. But really, we are quite comparable, and it did just adjust the non-resident rate. So we do feel comfortable with that as it stands.
You are making recommendations for the liveaboard and the commercial, and that's at 1.4. Or 1.5, whatever.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so this time I'm going to start this way. Commissioner?
Please don't. Okay, I'm fine with transient. I do think the liveaboard is too low, and so I would go anywhere from 1.4 or 1.5. I'm okay with going with 1.4 for now, getting a sense of that, and then if we don't think that's enough, we'll have another bite of that apple. But it appears to me that at least jump-started a little bit. As far as the commercial, you know, I'm open to what everybody feels about that, truthfully.
Same thing. Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely, we need to raise the fee for the liveaboards, and I'm willing. Marine Advisory Board, I attended that meeting. I think I did get the sense that majority of the committee was in favor of not only the liveaboard but the commercial increase as well. So, you know, I think it's the right thing to do. So.
Okay. Commissioner, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a couple quick comments. There's on page 34 in a presentation to us, it talks about benchmarking liveaboard commercial surcharge. And on here, most of us in voting, everybody here I think has been in Gulfport. We've all been in Gulfport. Probably a number of times, right? So we've been in Gulfport, we're very familiar with that. I think this is incorrect information being provided to us. It says liveaboard fee is $225. There's another form that's attached to this study that's at the end that shows that is not the case. It is not $225. It's significantly more than that. So as you consider that, we need to think about three things principally. Number one, what is our status as a liveaboard? We know what happens on this coast, on this particular coast, and as you turn up into St. Pete, St. Pete's another deal, but St. Pete is not us, and that's a long ways away from us. It's very few liveaboards for various and variety of different reasons. If this is an amenity to us, okay, it's an amenity to me when I buy a house here. I have the right to apply to put my boat into the marina here. We kept the difference a double. You had to be double and it was mentioned earlier, if you were a non-resident and you had a chance to put your boat in here, it was going to be double. That prevented us from getting some monies from the state and or from federal governments. But we wanted to hold this as an amenity to the owners here. That Gulfport, by the way, that number is anywhere, and it's over 350, and it goes as high as on a couple of them. I just looked at a couple of them when I realized that was in there at 382, 374, plus your electricity, plus, now we have somebody in here sitting right down there that I know knows how to do this. Any one of us can do this for a small amount of money. We talked about this in 2019 and 2020. I remember, forgive me, yelling about this back then, about if you're going to have somebody in here that's going to be using a lot of electricity, to be fair, you need to put that in their program. They've got to pay for their own electricity. And we said in the letter, everybody is totally accepting of that. Who wouldn't be? I mean, why would you pay for my electricity? It makes no sense, unless you'd like to. I don't mind, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't. I should pay for my own electricity. So in this, as we're looking at this benchmark, take out the word benchmark, and we got liveaboard and commercial surcharge. There should be a surcharge, certainly for liveaboard, and we looked at some of the things here. There's a liveaboard fee, and that's it. There ought to be other fees that should be attached to this, and that comes into the electric side. As I mentioned before, before the $90 was really for the electricity. So here's a liveaboard fee, and then there's another requirement. If somebody's going to be taking out some serious electricity, is that, and people just want people to be fair. That's all. It's all we care about. Most everybody that I talked to at the marina.
So are you okay with the proposed increases to the liveaboard and the commercial?
I think that ought to be I think they ought to really look at that, and they got incorrect information here from Gulfport. Gulfport is probably a leading.
Okay, but I mean, what are you saying? Don't make a decision until they change the slide? I mean, they're recommending the
1.5.
1.5% of what the normal charge would be for somebody just having their boat there. Are you okay with that?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I'm saying no. I'm saying
okay.
we got
Gotcha.
incorrect. Yeah, we got incorrect
Gotcha.
information here.
Okay, but it's just one.
And I apologize. Some of these slides were taken from the January presentation, which is where this information came from. And one of the pieces was to, more so on the rate side, was to kind of reassess any changes with our municipal marinas. So the document that I attached was something that I did just recently pull off of Gulfport's website. So if that changed between
Is it a municipal marina?
Yes. So when it changed between, the fall, when the data was collected, versus now, I can't speak to that. The difference is that it's increased.
I can help you. It has not changed. It hasn't changed in several years.
Okay.
But it's one city, and you see what the correct number should be. So you're saying you can't assess whether this increase is correct because of the one number?
No, you asked me, do I recommend going with this? And I'm saying.
Not with that. With what the city has proposed, the 1.5%.
I understand. No,
And you're saying, no, you don't support that?
I just think that we all ought to know if
But you said not to use benchmarking, so I'm trying not to look at what other people do. That's what I'm trying not to do, because you just said that earlier.
I said, forget benchmarking.
Right.
Okay?
So I'm
forget
not.
benchmarking. So what should somebody pay for a liveaboard here? Well, if you basing your decision on some information that's included in here, the information was incorrect.
Okay, but it's one city, not all of them. You're saying you can't make that decision without that slide being updated? Is that what you're saying? I just need to understand why you don't want to move forward. And if that's it, if it's because one piece of information is there, just say it, and I'll move down to Jeff, and we know where you stand.
Well, I would like to then ask anybody if did they use that in their consideration when they looked at this?
No, the four recommendations that you see here on the screen, your policy options are inflation adjusted for a liveaboard fee. Option 2 is market-based, which could obviously be adjusted with any changes to those figures. Option 3 is matching the existing commercial surcharge, which is 1.4 times, or option 4, the alternative commercial surcharge, which is 1.5.
And for the liveaboards, does that include using electricity?
Well,
well, there's electricity that happens.
It would then, that additional fee in theory would capture whatever additional usage of any items that they're using includes.
And so my point was that there's two separate issues. One is a liveaboard fee, and the other one is the use of electricity.
Okay, so let's put the electricity discussion, it's not listed here, utility, it should,
It is not listed. right.
it should be here, because it's a debate. But I don't want to debate both those things in the same line item. Okay,
I was certainly feeling electricity was included, just to clarify.
I did too, I
my-
just assumed.
My comments.
Okay. Commissioner Gao?
Yeah, let's just stir this up. If electricity isn't part of this calculation.
It is.
If it's not, I guess, what are all the considerations? If I'm on a liveaboard, but I don't have any electricity, I'm not doing anything else that a non-liveaboard does, why would I be paying more?
You have to have electricity. Every boat has a battery. They have to plug in
Okay.
to recharge. They have pumps that keep the water out. Every boat has electricity to
Okay.
some
So
degree or
above
another.
above and beyond, I'm just trying to.
I mean, they may not have air conditioning, they may not have lights, but they do have lights, but that can run off the battery.
Okay,
But,
so-
yeah,
Okay, and so every boat
uses something.
plugs in, uses something, and we don't meter every slip.
No.
We don't.
Right, okay, and so this is just
Let him,
an additional bump to take care of the electricity. it
take
seems
care of
to me.
everything,
Well, what are those, I'm honest, I'm trying to understand.
because the rates haven't been raised since,
Well, yeah, but if
Well,
it's not electricity,
to liveaboards?
No, I'm sorry.
No, the liveaboards is 1990s.
Right.
So they're not paying their fair share as compared to everybody else.
fair share of what?
They're there
Well,
24/7.
Jeff, could I
Yeah,
ask a question
yeah.
to Jennifer? Does a liveaboard at the marina pay property taxes?
No.
No.
Okay, so
It's
first,
like payment in lieu.
well, no, which is my, and I just wanted
It's
to
a
make sure
pilot.
I was correct. Exactly, so for me, part of it also is, just like if you're a renter, you're gonna pay more because somebody's gotta pay taxes, and that's what gives you all the
And
amenities of
insurance.
this city. So to me, that's a piece of it, so I'm just trying to help.
No, and that's
that.
information
Yeah.
that not only I need to know, I
Yeah.
think the public needs to understand that.
I understand totally what you're
Right,
doing.
and so, given that, and given we don't meter every slip, and this is to take that into consideration, I support the recommendation.
Okay. I also support the recommendation.
Yes.
I
And also
guess-
to clarify that, I guess, Gulfport, right, we aren't looking at the benchmarking, right? We're looking at the needs of our marina and
And the fairness and
in
equity.
the fairness and equity of our residents, so,
Right.
okay.
I mean, it's one number. I mean, I looked at what the numbers were. I support the changes to the liveaboard and the commercial, and whatever transient you're talking about, because I didn't see an increase for the transient. I did have a question on the transient, though. On one of your slides, you said the enterprise fund doesn't include day docks. Those are transient.
So.
Why don't they?
Well, so in some cases where a slip user may vacate a space, say somebody's going on a cruise or, they're taking their boat out and are going to be gone for 2
Yeah, I
weeks
know,
at a
we
time.
fill their spot, I
We-
know that, but
yes.
also day docks, I mean,
You can come on up.
We don't use transients on the day dock.
Day docks. right.
okay,
I
allow
wanted-
me to speak to them, please. Thank you.
I can't tell if this is working out, the light's on, but.
If it's on, it's
Yeah.
on.
So, good morning, I'm Lainey Sheets, Administration Superintendent. So, the day docks, as you know, are free to use for the public use, to come and stay for a few hours. We have our transient rates, and that is for people who are going to come and stay
Spend
in
the
the marina for one night, up to a week or more. We don't put our transients out on the day docks. They're not suitable for
I know,
long
wave
stays.
attenuation and all
Right. So just to clarify the difference, the transient rate is applied to slips within the marina basin that are vacant for a particular period of time.
Okay.
Can I make a comment about?
I'd like to just finish saying what I'm saying, because it's my turn to talk. That's what I would like to do.
Good.
And I say that because, John, you've talked a lot. You really have. At every subject on the marina, you talk the longest, which reduces the amount that we get to communicate, and it's very frustrating. So I am in support of the rate increases for the liveaboard, commercial, transient, whatever it is of the transient piece that you're doing. Because for whatever reason, I didn't pick that up. I think it's important that we stay current. I do think that the liveaboard and the commercial use it, well, I think they use more in whatever costs we have. I think the commercial is a private entity making money for themselves, and they're in a public entity. If they had to go be in a brick and mortar location, they'd have to pay those costs. These are those costs, and the public shouldn't be subsidizing their business. So that's why we call this an enterprise fund. So from the commercial perspective. Now, there's also something to be said from economic development side. We want those commercial things there. It brings people, it brings tourism, all of those things. So that's important too. So if we don't go to the max, there's a reason for it, because we want to encourage those kind of businesses to be in our marina for the betterment of the entire community. Regarding the liveaboards, yes, the liveaboards use a lot. We haven't had rate increases since the 90s. You know, there's always been discussion whether we allow liveaboards or don't, and I don't even want to get into that debate. But they should pay their fair share. I am assuming that covers the cost of any full-time water and electricity and anything else that they're using. That is why you would charge a liveaboard more, is because they're using more of whatever. It makes total sense. When you do look at the benchmarking, and sorry to use the word, but that's, I mean, just as a comparison, and you look at the real number of Gulfport, it all looks fine. Again, I don't know what the master plan is going to say. What if the master plan says, you've got huge potential with liveaboards, and we want you to add a whole new dock that is only liveaboards? Well, you do that, yeah, you're going to give them their own electricity, you're going to give them their own this, you're going to give, I mean, I don't see that happening. I'm just saying. We don't know. So to me, this is a blip in time. We need to get more current on everything we're doing and then reevaluate, because it ain't going down. It's only going to go up after the master plan. So, you know, I think it's just a step in the right direction, and that's why I support it. I think you've gotten
we have consensus direction.
Consensus direction, and I think we've got 30 minutes now for two more items. We've got the future consideration of rate increases to parking and boat ramp fees, which you had not come forward on boat ramp fees. And the parking is the parking of boats, the trailers, is that what you're referring to across the street?
Yes.
I don't think any of us can be against that. It's future consideration. You're not telling us what we're doing now, but you'll look at it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation from the consultant was just based on inflation for those increases, at least at this point. Again, we don't know what will change with any kind of master plan process.
Okay, and then there is the whole thing with the utilities. So before we get to you closing this out and talking to us about the timing of the master plan, which is to me at the end of the conversation, there was a whole discussion about utilities, metering, et cetera, et cetera. So what you've told us is it's a $30 minimum charge, whether you use electricity or not.
According to Duke, yes.
According to Duke, okay. All right, John?
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple comments were made about electricity, and someone said all the boats use electricity. That's not necessarily the case at all. Many of the boats don't use any electricity, and they may even have a pedestal sitting there. They're not just set up for it. They may be a deck boat, it may be a pontoon boat. He might have to come down and charge his batteries at some point in time, perhaps, and that might be another issue. He might bring a charger down there to do that. If we're talking about the utility side, as I was mentioning, there's someone in the room here, and we've discussed this time over time, we can get some sort of an idea of what somebody's using on their boat if you don't want to meter it. We at one point in time recommended metering anybody that's going to be using electricity consistently. And then that's where we come down and read it ourselves. And it's 8 boats. You read 8 boats a month. Pretty easy stuff. So there's all kinds of easy, if I'm just trying to be helpful so everybody's aware of this, it's real easy to do that. If you don't even want to do that, somebody in this room here, I'm looking at them right over there, we can get a check on almost every boat, any boat we want for almost nothing, and then just come up with some sort of a pattern of what electricity would cost that boat, get an agreement on it and just charge that much for that boat. So there's 2 real easy ways. Please don't even consider this using this system you were just talking about. That just doesn't work at all. So there's 2 easy ways of doing it for utilities, for electricity, and for water if you want.
So before I go on, Jennifer, I think, at least in our discussion yesterday, but I want to be clear, so as we're having this dialogue, we're clear on what your motivations were. It was my understanding yesterday, because I got into the dialogue too, why don't we meter liveaboards and commercial? They're the ones using the majority of it, in theory. In theory. You said to me that you felt, let's not go down that road now until the master plan. Again, if there is going to be, this is a blip in time. This doesn't answer every one of our questions. This is a blip in time. You said, again, what if other docks are recommended to be added and people actually approve that? What if jetties are put in and, there's all different things. Then wouldn't you want to look at doing if we wanted to meter, wouldn't you want to do it all at once? That's what you said to me. Wouldn't you want to wait and kind of ferret that out through the master planning process?
Yes.
That's how you feel about it, right?
Correct.
So again, it wouldn't be doing it tomorrow, or, today, but it can be reviewed, correct? And that's why it's not part of your recommendation today.
Yeah, and I think that we definitely need additional analysis on metering and to collect additional data. The Marina Advisory Committee at the last meeting, and I attended that meeting, as I said earlier, talked a lot about metering. And the Marina Advisory Committee is opposed to metering. They haven't taken a vote. I think they put it on their next agenda. That said, they asked for a white paper as far as, what the cost of the capital investment would be, where you would put the metering if you put it on, the pros and cons of metering. And so staff committed to getting them that white paper and doing, a much more in-depth analysis of metering versus not metering. You can see from the information that you were provided in this PowerPoint that definitely the commercial dock and A dock uses a lot more power than B and C and the south wall and the west wall. And so we need to look into that. We definitely need to delve that. But I do want to do it in a way where we involve Duke and staff as far as how it is we're going to read the meters. And I understand, Vice Mayor, with folks, volunteers coming down and reading the meters, got it. But I think that we need a more consistent method moving forward. I think that the numbers show us that commercial and ADOC should be metered. They're there. The numbers show us that. But the question is, with the master plan, how many,
right,
floating dock versus fixed dock versus metering versus not metering versus, any expansion and all those sorts of things versus a ferry, that we need to look at everything comprehensively and all together and present it to you know, the Marine Advisory Committee, the slip renters, the city commission, all is one work effort. So I think there's a lot of merit to metering. And I think the numbers show that we should move forward on doing additional analysis.
Okay, so is everybody okay with what her proposal is further analysis, get through the master plan, kind of examine it more versus doing it now? I'm giving consent. You okay?
Yeah.
John?
I'm responding to many people have talked to me about the fairness and the equity in the marina. I'm responding to that. And this is probably pretty easy way of handling this issue. If you'll recall, one year we had an increase of like $13,000 or $15,000 in electricity. And some of us probably knew why that was. But it can be handled very quickly and resolved. We know who's using the electricity, and we can either get a meter on those. If and when you order your pedestals, it's not very expensive to get a meter, electric meter on there, if that's what you want to do. And/or, like I said, we can go down and get an idea which each one is using, and come to some figuration. I'm just passing that along to us as we're sitting up here, because if somebody's watching this, it's a fairness thing. That's all. Like I said, if I'm using electricity, I'm absolutely willing to pay for it. Should pay for it. I should pay for it.
Okay, so
It's important.
I need consensus.
Yeah.
Jennifer explained what her thinking was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there needs to be a process in place. I think it's premature to not move forward. I mean, that's why we're here, is to make sure that we're doing due diligence on any sort of increases. I do believe that the master plan is going to be integral to this. So, yeah, we definitely need to do this.
To wait for the master plan before determining if we're metering.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner?
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at.
Are you there? Are you okay with that?
I would like to know when the master plan is going to take place.
Okay, well, there is a
She's gonna-
timeline
she's
in
gonna
here.
come to that. We've been talking about this since 2019.
I know, I'm the one that brought it forward. It's right here in our
And I'm the one that sent
PowerPoint.
all the information in and sent to the Marine Advisory, and of course, they've changed, et cetera. But, I have to deal with this. I have to deal with this for people that are talking to me about this, and that's why I'm being a little bit overbearing on this issue. But I have to deal with this. I've had to deal with this for 4 years now, and wow.
Okay, Commissioner?
Yeah. When was the last time we metered them?
We've never metered them.
So
There are 4 main meters.
Right, but we've never single metered.
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, right. And so, because I understand what John is saying, and I'm an equity guy, I want it. But I agree that we need to let the process unfold. And if it takes us a year, 2 years for that process to unfold, given we have never metered before,
Right.
I think 2 more years,
Is okay.
especially when we're waiting for a process, I think that's okay. So I support it.
Okay, and I agree. I think, again, the bigger picture, this rate study isn't supposed to be the answer to everything. It's supposed to be the baby step to the next step. And so it's a blip in time. It's not perfect. Capital projects that are there now may move out. Other capital projects, maybe metering will move in. I don't know. But I don't think I have to have an answer to every single thing to understand that the fund needs to be solvent. So I think that's important. The master plan timing, Jennifer?
So the master plan is funded in this year, in this fiscal year. And currently, Parks and Recreation staff is working with the harbor master and also our professional construction and engineering staff to develop the scope of the RFP, the request for proposal, which we'll then put on the market. We're looking at an evaluation September, October of 2024, 2023, 2024. There's a negotiation as far as ultimately which consultant we bring on board. There's project commencement, and there's the data gathering, design, draft, and review, stakeholder meetings and engagement, and an executive presentation September, October of 2024, which is ambitious. I understand that. And you really look at, when you think about the scope of what we're about to do as far as a master plan goes, this is a rate study that we're looking at. And we've been to the commission twice now, the community twice. So that end product may take a little bit longer, just so we get all of the community input that we need. As far as the scope of services go for the RFP, we're going to bring that before the City Commission at a workshop to make sure that we get everything on that scope of services that all of you want to see. We'll talk to the Marine Advisory Committee about it. If we had to call a special meeting, we'll call a special meeting.
And obviously include metering in there.
Yes, we'll include metering within the master plan. So we're looking
I
at.
would include the area thing too, even though that's not, I would include that as well as a discussion point.
Yeah, we can do that. So we're looking at fall of 2024.
For the executive presentation.
Yes.
I've got a question, just the enterprise or the Marina Fund cash balance slide, if you could go to that one real quick. Shows the.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that, the fluctuation in the cash balance, that's purely driven by your projections on capital expenditures, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
And one comment on that, if I may, Commissioner, is that we're going to be doing another rate study in 2027, 2028. I mean,
Right.
So
That'll be based on decisions we make from the master plan.
Right, exactly. And keep in mind, too, the decisions that we make for the master plan, they would touch a number of funds, most likely.
Right.
So not just the Marina
Utilities,
Enterprise Fund,
probably.
right. Utilities, Penny, all those sorts of things. So it's not just going to be something that we're going to lump on the back of the Marina Enterprise Fund to accommodate.
And this is why that master plan is so important, though, because this really, I mean, we've got those dips because we know we're going to be replacing ADOC, BDOC, CDOC, but we just don't really know the whole picture. So
That's right.
That's not a real, I don't know.
No, it's not real.
Yeah, it's not real.
Well, this isn't correct anymore, based on what we just said here. So that dip is not going to occur then.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, but,
Well, you're not going to put a new dock in before you do master plan.
yeah.
So to that point, we would, ADOC is $600,000. It's scheduled in fiscal year 2024. So we would need to, and that's why Nicole had mentioned we're coming back to the City Commission this summer when we move this farther along. ADOC was recently repaired, as you know, as a result of the, just during the dredge, or after the dredge, I think it was. So we would need to move that back so that we can have a really good look at what ADOC is going to cost, depending upon the results of the master plan.
Because what did you learn about floating docks and the cost of the floating docks versus the hard dock? Like
So-
a cost per whatever
Yeah.
foot?
Yeah, so actually, we had Kokolakis, Joe Kokolakis, when I was meeting with him, he happened to mention that he has a senior vice president who actually just works on marinas. And I think he did Clearwater Beach. I'm not sure it was Kokolakis contracting, but anyway, he had stated that, a wood dock or the fixed dock that we have is about 150 per square foot to construct, and then you go to a floating dock, that would be 450, and that was the aluminum floating dock, and then the concrete would be 550 per square foot. So that's what he's telling us, his experience right now in a floating dock, the difference between a fixed and a concrete
It's a
floating.
huge difference. And that all has to be taken in.
It is, and it's actually, what they did say, though, is that the delta is decreasing between a fixed dock and a floating dock in the current construction market. So it's getting a little bit cheaper to do the floating docks right now than it was before. I don't know what you can attribute that to, but, and this gentleman has, I think that we need to sit down and meet with him, and Joe has offered that, to meet with Joe as well in the room, just to really dig down into what that would cost. And whatever consultant we have, we would certainly ask that they talk to Kokolakis as well.
Commissioner, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, because we spent a lot of time last time talking about whether we should be front-loading the increases a little more.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you this question. Appreciate that you asked for this to be put up. But in your professional opinion, when, obviously our finance board thought we should front load it more. We're going to go 18 months without another increase now. In your professional opinion, though, from the enterprise standpoint, you think we're doing the right thing for this point in time based on our capital needs and everything we know now? We are doing the right thing for the enterprise fund. That can change once we have the master plan, but for right now, in your professional opinion, we shouldn't try to front load. You think this is the best way to go?
I do, Commissioner. I do. I think it's the best way to go, not only for the Marina Enterprise Fund itself, but also for the slip renters. Because to the Vice Mayor's point, there's a 3-year time frame in which we should have raised rates but did not. And there are good explanations for that in my mind. First of all, there's the dredge and everybody having to move out and then come back in again, and then COVID. And there was no way we were going to raise rates during COVID. And really, and that impacts the commercial dock as well. If you can imagine, raising rates on the commercial dock during COVID. And so, and the aftermath and the recovery. So here we are, and we're behind. And so I really wanted to, as I said earlier, minimize that rate shock. And in order to do that, we do have to take a small interfund loan in I think, fiscal year 2027 in order to accommodate this enterprise fund. And I think that's fair, and I think it's equitable. It's something that we do quite a bit. Essentially, we borrow from ourselves at a very, very low interest rate, and we have to pay back within 3 years. And so I think it's good for the enterprise fund. I think it's good for our residents who are availing themselves of slips in our marina.
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
As far as raising, I'd like to just make this point publicly as well. We talked about raising this. We just raised the increase. We just had an increase. And so when we did that, I kept asking, where does that go? I wanted that to go into capital, okay, as opposed to the other, because we used to follow the capital. And we used to do rate increases when someone felt we should do a rate increase. And I think everybody feels we should do a rate increase, another rate increase. It's not a question, it's when. And I'd suggest we do a rate increase in a year from the time we just did one. That's fair. It's fair, and we haven't had a rate increase for a good period of time. And we are pay-as-you-go, and that is a strategy. That's a strategy for the marina. And therefore then, let's get on this period. By then we'll be in the process of getting a better understanding of what our marina master plan is. And I think the marina master plan, we've done this a number of times. Everybody remembers, you remember when we did this, we did this, we've already done this, and in the end, we're probably not going to be expanding this marina any, based on everything that I've known and seen and watched. So in the end, we're trying to come down to some grips. If we're going to need new docks, are they going to be floating, or are they not going to be floating? And if they're not going to be floating, then we probably ought to be thinking about getting some of those things up there pretty quick, because I don't think we're in great condition right now.
Yes.
So I'll just make that comment. Thank you.
In regards to that, normally we do our rate increases at budget time. Because that's how we base our budget, correct?
Yes.
So doing it in April would be an off cycle.
Yes, and that is in place. That 10% was in place.
Right,
Next
we
rate
did it
increases-
so that we could get that out of the way and allow you to have time to come back to us.
Right, and we wanted to start, right, because that was January. And so we want to start generating that revenue. Then the next rate increase, according to the plan that we have now, would be October of 2024.
Okay, so that was in the plan when decisions were being made?
Yes.
So it wasn't in the plan for this, next April or this fall?
Correct, right.
Okay. For me, I'll just be honest, I just want to accept the staff's recommendation. I think they did a lot of work. We went out and paid a consultant to help us with this. They have examined this. I don't feel like I need to question every little thing that they've recommended. I just don't. This is I don't know, less than $1 million fund, we don't put this much discussion in our $40 million water enterprise fund. You know, and I understand it's more emotional. Lifetime member of the boat club, had a boat in that marina, spent my life down there. I know it. But I think we have to put it in perspective for the amount of money that it is and the amount of users there are to the amount of, you know, you tell me this is what you think needs to be done, it makes some sense. I can tell you right now, I'd rather have you go out and meter commercial and liveaboards, because that makes total sense. But I also understand there's bigger considerations, a lot bigger considerations. So it's the big picture to me that's most important versus nitpicking at stuff. We've got, you know, 12 votes from Marina Advisory Committee. Now, whether you think the Marina Advisory Committee is good or not, that's your opinion. But that's who our advisory committee is. And, you know, you can accept the recommendations or not. If they have approved the recommendations from staff, I'm not going to sit and try to blow holes in it as to when we do what and how we do it. I think the bigger picture is more important.
And Mayor, just if I could add to that, I think the understanding, Marine Advisory and hopefully all of the marina, is that these rates are a floor. As we learn more, we may have to adjust, and I think that's important. So, yes. But again, I'm supportive.
All right, we have 9 minutes, and we have some stuff to cover. So, you good?
I'm good.
You got the direction you need?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, I didn't get any emails on commission discussion, but we do have an update from the city clerk.
Yes, thank you.
Rebecca?
Yes. One of the things that I wanted to bring before you this afternoon is I've been working on streamlining the election process for the candidates and the for the campaign finance reports, and the treasurers, obviously, who put in those reports. And I've been working with the city clerk in Largo, and they're currently implementing as well the electronic finance reports through Easy Vote. And some of the other cities that use those, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, Orlando, just quite a few list. And I wanted to just see if I could get commission consensus to move forward in moving that forward. And part of the reason I wanted to bring it to you now was I do want to see about getting it implemented probably late summer, early fall, for any candidates that I might have for the 2024 that might be thinking of running and want to pull their papers, you know, and start doing that early. And so I just wanted to, I've kind of run it by each of you at different times on one-on-one, but I wanted to get a commission consensus to be able to bring back a resolution and implement that to you.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a plan to me. You guys okay with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Everybody okay?
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That was it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Jennifer, did you want to give us a update on the City Hall ribbon cutting?
Yeah,
Please.
Oh, heck yeah. First of all, we actually anticipate that our budget meeting on June 1st will be in the new City Hall. Our very first meeting will be a budget meeting in the new City Hall. We're going to be here for the next set of meetings. The City Commission Chambers is almost done. We don't have our audio visual equipment up yet, but we're working on that.
Get on that, Sue.
Ribbon cutting is,
Just teasing.
so the ribbon cutting dedication is May 19th, starting at 5:30. You know, it is. We're going for it. The elevator, actually, that we're all waiting for, the ADA elevator, is nearing completion as well. So we're
We all
really
gonna take
excited
a ride
about
on it to test it,
We're
or-
going up and down and up and down and up and down. That's right, exactly. So really excited about that. If you've had an opportunity, please go in the two larger conference rooms, the overflow rooms. The public art has been installed.
wow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Love
I
it.
don't even think I've seen them.
Yeah, I just love it. Those are local artists, all of them. Really, really, we have a curated art exhibit from local artists at our new City Hall, and I'm really, really proud of that exhibit itself. Mayor, and I do have one more thing, if I've answered your question there. I would like to send a letter to the Florida Department of Transportation, and this is in regards to golf cart crossings on Skinner. as a part of the Complete Streets effort, we'd like to request a golf cart crossing on Highland and Douglas as well, in addition to Bass. We don't want to lose Bass, but we
Yeah.
want these 2 additional golf cart crossings. We've been discussing that when we're considering.
And we said that to them when they were here making their
Right.
presentation.
Right, I just want to make sure you're okay
Where are
with
they
me sending
again?
the letter.
What are
Highland and-
Highlander and Douglas.
Yeah.
Mm. Just want to make sure you're okay with that.
Yep.
No, I thought part of the whole concept of the complete street and lowering that speed limit was to allow golf carts to cross.
It is.
And it would have
It
been
is, but
included.
they're roundabouts, and I think I don't think they have any experience with having golf carts in roundabouts.
Right. And this is the variance.
I don't think they do, I could be wrong, but I think because I remember when Jerry, what's his name, was here, Dubkowski was here, he had reservations too, but, like, as to whether not whether it was good, but whether FDOT would do anything, but we did say to FDOT very clearly.
So as it stands now, we could go through the complete street and still only allow golf carts at Bass.
Right, correct. We need a variance through FDOT in Tallahassee in order to get that golf cart crossing at Highlander and Douglas.
Oh, is that what they've told us?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, because I actually thought it was included, but.
Yeah, I thought it was dictated
It's
by
mine.
speed, and if the speed were low enough.
No, we have to seek additional
Who's
golf cart
saying
crossings on Skinner. FDOT, and this is a request from Bob Ironsmith, so we need to request that variance.
FDOT, who at FDOT though, is what I want.
I don't know. I don't have the original.
Okay, yes, you can send the letter, but I'd like to know who, because, I mean,
You want to know more? I've got it. I just need authorization
yeah,
to send the letter.
send the letter. I'm
And then I'll
just
get you
curious as to,
Right.
you know, is it the folks that have been working on our Skinner design that are saying, you've got to go get the variance?
I believe it is.
Yeah, well, I got a real problem with that too. Why aren't they asking for why aren't they advocating for us?
Jorge's going to come bail me.
I mean, why aren't they advocating?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. To help out the city manager,
Thank
the
you.
request is a design variance, and it has to go through central office in Tallahassee.
Why aren't they making the request for the design variance?
They need a letter from the city
They need-
supporting it, and that's the letter I want.
I see. Okay. They're not just saying, we can't do anything, you go fight this battle.
You have to do a formal request from the design
Got ya.
office, otherwise you're setting a precedent.
Okay, well, then that makes some sense.
And this is to cross,
So then you don't have to get back to me on anything.
and then this is to cross, so we still,
Highland
golf
and-
carts won't be allowed to ride down Skinner, east-west, right? This is only to cross north-south?
Correct. It's dictated by speed and the number of lanes. So they're not allowed to cross right now because it's 4 lanes.
Right.
So once you reduce and
We
you
can
do
maybe ask for
the
it.
complete streets, then you've got 1 lane in each direction with the turn lane. So that should help with that. And then the speed
There is no
reduction should
turn lane.
allow for the travel along.
Highland and Douglas.
That won't be me.
Is the speed limit
Be me either.
proposed 30?
Yeah, I believe it's going to vary as you come from Bass, as you head west.
Yeah,
It'll-
35 and
it'll
then down
lower.
to 30.
What is it in the roundabout?
It should be 25 through there, if I'm not mistaken. I'm working off memory, but,
Okay.
All right, let me know.
okay.
We need to get the crossing and then we can fight to get them on Skinner.
Yeah.
After it's done and we can
Absolutely.
prove,
I agree with that.
right?
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Let's get that. Let's get what we can get and fight for more.
Right
We
now,
can just get them to be able to go through the intersection at Main and Alt 19 to get them to the marina.
yeah, I took a trip to Tallahassee just
Yeah,
for
that
that.
would be nice.
Yeah.
That can happen. I'm telling you it can happen because that thing is so controlled. But, you know, we got to focus on Skinner right now. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
That was.
City attorney update, anything?
Don't ask.
Okay, we only have like 1 minute left. Does anybody have anything excruciating or anything like really emergent that they need to tell us?
Within 15 seconds, yes, just want to acknowledge that May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And given my diagnosis, and we're all good.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
Oh, my
22
gosh.
stitches, baby. Yeah, everybody wear sunscreen and make best friends with a dermatologist.
Okay, anything else that has to be?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, to wish our colleagues good luck Thursday night, since it's just all men for the Thursday night meeting.
got it.
I have every confidence that you won't screw it up. I'm hopeful. So That's it.
There might be some new
That's a real
legislation when you come back.
And everybody remember, squeeze in, because John will sit here, and Rob, you'll sit here, and Jeff, you'll sit there. So,
Get some good pictures of it, you know.
Yeah, we need
so
pics.
stored, you know.
all right. That's all I'm going to go with. So, happy birthday, Mo. Join us in the back for whatever it is we're having. We're adjourned.